Kirk. I got a triple dipper, though. I got a triple dipper filled up with stuff. And by the way, Grand Council coming up at 4 p.m. with Dale Jackson, Jeff Poor. Triple dipper, hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm thinking about changing the order right now, but I'll tell you the order that I've got it in for now. At war with woke. That's the first one. Listen, at war with woke. The left is so bent on just, pursuing their woke aims. It doesn't even matter. I mean, yes, we won against Cracker Barrel, but there's still so much left to be done. The war with woke, it's real. It's ongoing. It is like every single day. And I'll tell you more about that. Number 1, Triple Dipper, war with woke. Number 2, in case you have not heard, Democrats once again are being recalcitrant, belligerent, just absolutely 100% dilatory, but they are binding up all of Trump's nominations. Not a little bit. It's okay to debate. It's okay to filibuster even. Not that. They're making everything as absolutely painful as they can be, to the extent that there are hundreds of nominations for important positions like U.S. attorneys and judges and others around the nation that have been bound up. Well, guess what? Republicans are saying, you know what? Y'all go pound sand. And they're working right now to change the rules. It's a procedural matter. It's called the nuclear option. So I'll explain it to you. The Senate nuclear option. What does that mean? Number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, and I'll be honest with you, this is the change. I think I may bring this into number 1. Because Charlie Kirk being shot is exactly what this whole next dipper is about. I called it Trump derangement syndrome is real. That's the name of the dipper. That's why I got all my resources kind of built around that concept. Trump derangement syndrome is real. But it's more than just Trump derangement syndrome. There's like a lashing out right now. Charlene and I were talking earlier, and I'll probably say it after the monologue, but Trump derangement syndrome is real. And it appears that evil at every turn right now is intent on lashing out. Because they no longer have free reign. We'll talk about that. Number 3, Triple Dipper, Trump derangement syndrome is real. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and say I'm calling an audible and pulling that one to number 1. All right, well, let me jump on into today's Rightside Way opening monologue. And I'll be honest with you, this one does deal with crime. And this one also, oh, by the way, is a history lesson. So let's talk about some things, and let's talk about a different day. Let's talk about a time when those who acted out in a criminal way were not given honor or passes. They were not given cashless bail. They were actually treated like they deserved. But I'll tell you this, divide and conquer, that's what the left is pursuing. They really are. The left does not have a viable plan. The left is providing no policies or leadership or promoting any growth. Their plan right now is just simply hate Trump. And let's be honest. If you watch the behaviors, if you listen to the rhetoric, if you take in what they're saying, then the only conclusion is that so many on the left actually hate Donald Trump more than they love America. And that's the case. They hate Donald Trump more than they love America. Nowhere is that disembodied, ghoulish behavior more evident right now than in the left's inability to admit when criminal acts need to be addressed. They can't. They won't. They don't want to admit that crime is rampant in blue cities, and that would be admitting that Trump is right. And so, meanwhile, people are dying. Like take Chicago, for instance. For 13 consecutive years, y'all, Chicago has had the most murders of any U.S. city. For 7 consecutive years, Chicago has had the highest murder rate among all U.S. cities with more than 1 million people. Out of Chicago's 147,899 crimes reported since January 1st, arrests have only been made in 16% of them. We're talking New Orleans, Memphis, Baltimore, Detroit. They also rank among the top murder capitals per capita in the world. In the world. But the answer from these cities is not, please help us. The only response you get from their blue leadership when they're confronted about it is to create the false flag operations of things like racism and social justice and mental health and bad Trump. It's demeaning. It's insulting to their citizens. It's just gross. It's the absolute neglect of their people because they are so steeped in their dogma that they would rather burn down the house than to admit that the house needs repairs. Case in point, story broke a couple of years ago about flyers that were found in the employee break room at Home Depot. One of those flyers was subtitled, Unpacking Privilege. Oh boy. Under the title of Leading Practices and purported to examine different types of privilege, including social privilege, white privilege, and even heterosexual privilege, whatever that is. One example read, If you're confident that the police exist to protect you, you have white privilege. Come on. Who does that? What level of hate mongering has to exist in someone's warped thinking for them to believe that safe streets are not important, only hating what is right, hating what is good, denying what is safe? And nothing has brought this strange divide more to the forefront of our national discourse than the recent murder of a beautiful young Ukrainian immigrant named Irina Zarutska. She was just 23 years old. You heard the story. We even talked about it yesterday. Maybe you saw the heartbreaking videos of Irina sitting on a public transport train in Charlotte, North Carolina, and suddenly a career criminal deranged lunatic stood up behind her and savagely stabbed her in the neck for no reason. The images are heartbreaking. Heartbreaking as the craven savage stared down at her and then calmly walked away, dripping her blood through the train car while mumbling that he got him a white girl. Irina came to America to escape war and violence, but she went to a blue city where judges let criminals walk free and mayors want to talk about how hard life is for the criminals. Yeah, she escaped war, but she found crime and she bled out on the train. But I got to tell you, and here's when I'm going to jump into some history for a minute. I got to tell you a story about one guy that inspired me to talk about this. There was a time when the sensible thing to do was actually to hunt down perpetrators and bring them to justice, to actually press in and realize that power and politics and persuasions about personalities don't matter. What matters is people. People are lost if you don't do something about law and order. If your constituents are dying, you're failing. And I was reminded of one of those stories most recently. You ever heard of a guy named Frank Hamer? Frank Hamer. Hamer was a legend. He was a take no prisoners, take the fight to the bad guy's good guy. And his story is epic. He was Francis Augustus Hamer, known to his friends as Frank. He was an American lawman, a Texas Ranger. He was born in the late 1800s. He's been described as one of the greatest lawmen of the entire 20th century. And although his formal education ended after the 6th grade, as a youth, Hamer displayed all kinds of unusual abilities, including an extremely high level of intelligence. He had a near eidetic or photographic memory. At 21 years old, after capturing a horse thief on his own, Hamer was actually recruited to the Texas Rangers. From the violent borderlands of South Texas to the oil boom towns where law meant nothing, Hamer walked straight into chaos, and he always came out alive. As a Texas Ranger, he went wherever he was called. He dealt with border bandits, prohibition bootleggers, and arms smugglers during the Mexican Revolution. In 1908, Frank Hamer resigned for a time from the Rangers to become the city marshal of Navasota, Texas, a lawless boomtown that was racked by violence. Shootouts on the main street were said to be so frequent that in 2 years, at least 100 men had died. Hamer moved in at the age of 24 and enforced the law and order through his sheer force of will. In 1922, back again with the Texas Rangers, Hamer led the fight to stop the Ku Klux Klan as a senior Ranger captain, and he allegedly saved 15 people from lynch mobs. In 1928, Hamer spoke truth to power by putting a halt to a murder-for-hire ring. Get this. His extraordinary means of accomplishing it made him nationally famous. What it was the Texas Bankers Association. What? Yes. The Texas Bankers Association were so tired of being robbed, they began offering rewards of $5,000 for every dead bank robber, but not 1 cent for a live one. You can imagine how that went. Hamer determined that men were setting up homeless men to be killed by complicit police officers to get the reward money. So the officers, they would collect the rewards and pay the men their finder's fees. Yeah, when the corrupt police refused to support Hamer's investigation, though, Hamer wrote out a detailed expose of the whole racket. He called it the Banker's Murder Machine. He took his article down to the press room of the state capitol in Texas and handed out copies. And his revelations about the racket resulted in public outrage, an investigation, indictments. Basically, Hamer was a man who would stare down whoever got in the way of law and order. He retired soon after that in 1932, but then he was called out of retirement one more time, and it became his most famous hunt in the year 1934. When Frank Hamer was called upon to be the one to head up the hunt for Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, the infamous Bonnie and Clyde. So for months, Hamer studied their patterns, where they ate, where they hid, the back roads they favored. And on May 23rd, 1934, near Gippsland, Louisiana, Hamer led a posse into an ambush that ended in a storm of over 100 gunshots. The headlights screamed his name, but Hamer refused interviews. He turned down glory because for him, it was never about the fame. It was about ending violence with violence when no one else had the steel to do it. By the time he died in 1955, Hamer's legend was forged in scars and blood. He had been wounded 17 times in gunfights, but none had stopped him. Between 50 and 70 criminals had fallen to his gun, and countless others were broken by his presence. Inducted into the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame, his name became a symbol of iron will. He was a man who would walk headfirst into danger again and again because he believed that somebody had to. It's said that at a time when crime reigned in parts of our nation, that Frank Hamer wasn't just a ranger. He was the line between order and chaos. Folks, this is a battle for our society we're in right now. It is. I'm looking at the news right now of Charlie Kirk being shot for no other reason except having a conservative voice. The young lady on the train who died senselessly the other day. Any number of other events like that. The left does not want us to be united. But like my lovely Charlene always says, there's more of us than there are of them. And there's a reason why all of us are glad that Trump has chosen to go on the offensive against crime. Because he sees the concept of safe communities as being a part of his mandate. Because he, Donald Trump, cannot abide by the idea of working harder to just, not offend the liberals more than locking away the criminals. He has attacked this issue, and he is taking on the Frank Hamer role of standing between order and chaos. General George Patton once said, "You must acquire the warrior soul." Another time he said, "There are 3 ways that men can get what they want: by planning, by working, and by praying." And he went on to say, any great military operation takes careful planning or thinking, but then you must have well-trained troops to carry it out. That's the working. But between the plan and the operation, he said, there's always an unknown. And that unknown spells defeat or victory, success or failure. It's the reaction of the actors to the ordeal when it comes. Some people, Patton said, call that getting the breaks. He said, I call it God. God has his part or his margin in everything, and that's where prayer comes in. Yeah, I agree with Patton. I think so. I think it takes a warrior soul. I think it takes someone who will plan and prepare and go into the fray, whether it's popular or not, just because it's needed, knowing that they have the good on their side. Because the line between order and chaos is often a thin line. Sometimes it's the thin blue line of law enforcement officers who go into hard places and do hard things every day. And sometimes it's the strength of one man who can inspire others. Sometimes it's just about politicians who will get out of the way, and if they won't move, then we have to have them moved. Look, we're at a hinge point right now in the war on crime. I got to ask you, what kind of country do you want? What kind of community do you want to live in? What kind of place do you want for your children to grow up in? This is a fight worth having. We're in this fight together. And yes, there's more of us than there are of them. And yes, like Frank Hamer, I believe that President Trump has actually decided to defy the critics and work to be the one who stands on the fine line between order and chaos. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. The fine line between order and chaos. That's where we are right now. The fine line between order and chaos. Think about what that means. Which way are we going to lean? Order or chaos? You know my vote. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. The interview we just had with Mike Durant, author of In the Company of Heroes, the pilot who was shot down in Black Hawk Down. He became a national icon, an international icon really, as images of him being held captive in Somalia were transmitted around the world. The way he tells his story, though, is as amazing as his story. So sit back, enjoy your time, hear about things that you're going to think about for the rest of your life after this discussion we're going to have with Mike Durant on the Just Right podcast. Yeah, let's do a show.
1, 2, 3, hey!
Hey, Mike Durant, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to have you. And listen, I'm going to run through just a quick intro of who you are so folks knew who I got sitting across from me. All
Sure.
right? Some of this is going to be unpacked in more detail, but I know for a fact you were born in New Hampshire, but you call Alabama home, have for a number of years. 22 years active military. First enlisted, I think, in 79?
You got it.
Weren't you a Spanish linguist?
I was.
Yeah.
And don't ask me to speak Spanish. They taught us to, the school that I went to, the focus was to just be able to understand it, not speak it. So I can still understand a little bit, but I'm not a very good speaker.
Did some intercept work down there in Panama, right?
I did.
Yeah. I got family ties there. My grandfather was post commander. It was at Corzal, I think it was one of the, years ago. Became a warrant officer in 83, which I still don't understand the warrant officer mafia. I never knew whether you guys got saluted or what was going on with that. But anyway, warrant officer in 83, flight school, Fort Rucker. 5 years later, you were selected for the elite 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail. 3 distinguished flying crosses, Bronze Star with a V device, Purple Heart, and fairly rare in modern times, a Prisoner of War medal. And then you retired as a CW4, am I right? Chief Warrant Officer 4?
That's correct. 2 DFCs.
2 DSCs. Yeah. Well, okay, just 2. Got your undergrad and your master's from Embry-Riddle, is that right?
That's correct.
And built a successful defense contracting firm, Pinnacle Solutions, which you've retired from now. And you're married, and most importantly, you've had 6 kids.
We do.
Got your own basketball team.
Yeah, with some bench. Yeah.
Well, good enough. Well, hey, thanks for being on the Just Right podcast. Appreciate you.
Yeah, again, my pleasure. I do always enjoy time spent with you. I think, we certainly have some common history, and you get it. And it's kind of nice to talk to people who get it, because when you talk to people who don't get it, it's a little bit frustrating, and you got to get drilled down into areas you feel like it's tedious, but with you, that's not the case.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. And we'll have to make sure we don't slip into acronyms or something like that.
Well, that is easy to do, and then you can lose a lot of folks that way. But I've gotten pretty good at trying to avoid that.
Well, let me ask you this. I want folks to get to know who you are as much as your story, because your story is amazing. I've got your book sitting right here in the Company of Heroes. I read it years ago, and I've had a copy on my shelf. In fact, I think I told you before the show, my son nabbed it. He's stationed down at Benning, so he's got it with him, so I had to get another copy for today. But let me ask you, how did it start with you in the military? You're a kid in New Hampshire. Why the military? I mean, what happened there that said, that's where I want to lead my life?
So, I characterize myself as a blue-collar kid. I mean, working parents, we were certainly not poor, but we weren't really well off either, and never saw myself as necessarily college material. I did fairly well in school when I tried, but I wasn't necessarily motivated to go to college. And I lived in a paper mill town, and a lot of people went to work in the mill. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need people to do that. That's, if that's what you want to do. But I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And when I was about 14, and it's about the time you start thinking about, what am I going to do when I get out of college? Doesn't keep you up at night, but, you start pondering that kind of stuff. I had a major turning point in my life. I went on a helicopter flight with a friend of the family.
No kidding.
His name is Joe Brigham. He was a warrant officer in the National Guard. He also had his own business. And as I found out later, I wasn't the only young teenager that he ever did this with. He took a few of us up that he wanted to try to inspire, and it absolutely impacted me. I mean,
no kidding.
We're flying over Mount Washington, which is the highest mountain in the Northeast. It's 6,280 feet. We're basically hovering. The aircraft was kind of primitive by today's standards, I guess I would say. It was kind of a glass bubble, if you remember the MASH helicopters, similar to that. And it's like you're just floating in space. And I'm looking at, like, again, I'd flown on a small airplane before, but never anything like this experience. And I said, you could actually do this as a job? And he says, yeah. And he said, you could, if you join the Army, they'll send you to flight training.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. I got to tell you what, before I do anything further, I got to tell you about attorney Stan McDonald. Stan McDonald, indeed, a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. Y'all, I'm telling you right now, I know Stan personally. He is not only a good lawyer, but he can just stand there with all the street cred in the world as somebody who has been in the trenches, in the fray, in the mix for years on all the conservative policies and politics that right-side ruffians care about. So yeah, Stan McDonald, a really good lawyer. I can tell you right now, he's represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions over the years. He can stand up for you in any local, state, or federal court. I like to say, and I always do, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you're going to have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries are going to have no greater foe. So that being said, you need a lawyer in North Alabama, I'm going to give you his number. You ready? Here we go. Attorney Stan McDonald. The law firm is Wilmer and Lee. He's an America First family man, and the phone number is 256-479-3020. That's 256-479-3020. And do me a favor, tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And of course, no recitation made. The quality legal services are bad at all because it's Stan McDonald and he advertises on Rightside Radio and he's a friend and I like him and he's great. So there's my disclaimer, sort of.
Our disclaimer.
Yes, disclaimer. By the way, Stan did just let me know that this morning he opened another file on somebody who came to him because they heard it on the radio show.
There you go.
Love that. Love that a lot. I tell you what, the text lines are open, and there's, I think the vast majority of the texts we've gotten, text lines are 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text me your thoughts, your concerns, but be aware, we're seeing, I've got at least 10 texts here saying, Phil, Charlie Kirk was shot, and we are keenly aware and praying, and we will be back to talk about that here momentarily. But thank you to all of you who are making sure that we already know, and we'll just stay on top of it as the show progresses. It really ties into some of the topics that I've got on tap today. It does. And we don't know the motivations, but in my mind, there's no other reason why he would be shot at one of his events other than somebody wanted to silence the voice of anybody who dared to speak as a Christian conservative. More to come. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You could do this as a career. And I'm like, okay, if this is a possibility for me, yeah, I'll take it. And ultimately, when I got old enough, I went and talked to the recruiter. And you probably heard the joke, you know a recruiter's line because their lips are moving. They have a quota. They're trying to fill certain slots.
Sure.
And there are programs that are available sometimes, and sometimes they're not. And he told me, sorry, but flight school program's not available for people coming right in off the street. You're going to have to join the military first, and then you can apply for flight school afterwards, which is all correct. But I didn't really know whether he was telling me the truth about, could I have applied to go directly to flight school? But either way, and another smart thing I did, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I have made some good decisions along the way, is I spoke to someone else about joining the military, and I think you and Jared had talked about this, or he did, and you don't want to just go join the military, right? There has to be a purpose to it. I mean, serving the country is noble and it's great, and we need people to do that. But for you as an individual, you should also be thinking about, what can I do with this in the life after the military?
Sure, absolutely.
And I was offered to go to, as we discussed before we got on camera, the Spanish language school in Monterey, California, to be in military intelligence. And how marketable is that? I don't know. But, I was convinced that, well, they'll send me to school for a year to learn Spanish. I'll be a military intelligence analyst. That's probably something worth something, yeah. and then I can possibly apply for flight school. Okay, we'll go ahead and sign this. And it was one of those cases where I had gone off to talk to the recruiter on my own, and then came back to the house. I'd already signed the paperwork. My parents had not been informed at all. And they were kind of shocked, right? But I said, I think this sounds like a pretty good deal. Let's give it a try. And then I was stunned by the reality of basic training.
No kidding.
I wasn't mentally prepared for it. I just wasn't.
But who really is?
Yeah, I guess no one is.
That's back when drill sergeants could be drill sergeants.
Yes, I mean it was quite a lifestyle change, is all I could say.
Yeah.
I mean, you're living in an open barracks with 20 guys that you've never met before from all over the country. They treat by design. They treat you like crap, right? I mean, it's probably not as bad as some of the other military training that goes on, but it's going from a high school kid with long hair and concert T-shirts on and didn't care about anything except girls and some sports. This is a radical lifestyle change. And I at that point was thinking, I have made a mistake. This is not what I thought it was going to be. And I don't know what I did think it was going to be, but it certainly shocked me to the point where I was thinking about, I don't know if I can get out of this, but if I can, I need to.
Well, was there anybody in your life, like you had this warrant officer from the Guard who gave you the flight in the helicopter, but did you have any military in your family? I mean, was there anything watching it as you grew up? like my family's been generational Army, so my son watched 3 generations before him do stuff, and then he wanted to do it.
Right.
But did you have anything like that?
They were in the Guard. My uncles were in the Guard. My father was in the Guard. But to me, that's different. I mean, you just sort of see him, go once a month. Not that the Guard isn't a great,
No,
organization, but it's just
it wasn't a full life.
right. And you still live at home. Unless you get deployed, obviously. But it was. I wasn't prepared. I was again to the point where if I could get out of this, I need to, and was convinced that I should stay by the drill sergeant, and I did. And at that point, got like super motivated. I got like the PT award, physical training award of the whole class, and in basic training, I scored the highest, and just really got motivated that okay, if I am going to do this, I'm going to do the best job that I possibly can. And then I went on to language school, advanced individual training, where they teach you how to actually do what you're on contract to do. And then I went to Panama, and that's where my assignment was. And I'm a whatever at that point, probably an E3 enlisted private. And
hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all have talked about this show. This one, goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the line from there to what we call, once again, Fort Benning. Oh, yeah, and big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. And by the way, that's just the radio. Then there's all y'all out there in the whole wide world going to the World Wide Web, dialing us in, live streaming the show every single day. Places like YouTube, X, Rumble, Facebook, our website, rightsidemedia.org. And then all you guys that podcast it after the fact and pick up what you might have missed. Listen, bottom line is this. I say all that every time, not just to be funny or cute or whatever else. I say all that to say that we can see where and how you guys pick up the show. And it means the world to us. Thank you very much for being a part of our lives. You are the audience that makes what we're doing worthwhile. So thank you very much. Got to talk about the Charlie Kirk situation. And I will tell you right now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pray. I have this microphone, and God has given me this platform. I know that I have the opportunity whenever and however I feel to go ahead and say what needs to be said, to include many times I have prayed on the air. And I'm going to do that right now. Lord, in the name of Jesus, Father, we ask you just to bless Charlie Kirk. Father, we don't understand why things happen the way they do, but we do know that he professes to know you as a Savior. We also know that he has been an amazing voice, taking advantage of every tool and gift you've given him to do things for your greater good. And Father, we also know that he has the best interest of this nation at heart. I believe that. Father, I pray that he would be well. God, that you would, in Jesus' name, give him whatever his body needs for healing. Bless his family. I know he has young children and a sweet wife, and I pray, God, you cover them with your peace. And Lord, I pray also that you would bind the enemy. God, in Jesus' name, that you would take charge. And Father, you would not allow evil to prevail or these moments to triumph in any way. In Jesus' name, amen. I get to do that. I mean every word of that. I believe that Jesus is Lord, and I don't mind taking my microphone and praying once in a while. That being said, the situation with Charlie Kirk is absolutely reprehensible. A few years back, I will tell you, JP, have you ever seen Charlie Kirk in person? Have you had a chance to do a TPUSA event or anything?
I have not, no.
I went to, I'm trying to think who hosted it, but here in Alabama, and it may have been the Business Council of Alabama, or it may have been the state party, Republican Party. They brought in Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens when they were still fresh on the scene. And neither one of them had gotten like so huge like they are now, because they're both viral now. TPUSA is a multi-million dollar nonprofit organization that does, they have TPUSA, they have TPUSA Action, they have TPUSA Faith. And they do stuff to give voice to, especially your age group, your demographic. He's part of the voice of your generation. In my opinion.
Is the voice of
absolutely
my generation. And, not much gets to me at all, but I am still pretty shaken up at what's happened. It's awful. And yeah, this is not just a political commentator. Like, this is a father, this is a son, a husband, and I don't
and
know,
a good dude.
Yeah, it's very hard to process it all. But I mean, he's not one of the voices of my generation of conservatives. Like, he was the voice for our generation. He was the biggest advocate for everything young conservatives were fighting for.
He's done more to put people of your age group into a voting posture and an activist posture, and getting out there and realizing they can have a voice without having to have purple hair and transgenderism in their life and all that kind of stuff, and make faith. And one of the greatest compliments I ever got was someone who just told me one day that I had made it look cool to be a Christian. I think Charlie Kirk does that. I mean,
1000%.
I mean, listen, the guy makes it look cool to be a Christian. And there are, I can't tell you how many times I have seen the liberal media of late saying what we have to find is our own version of Charlie Kirk, because he's the high watermark.
Yeah.
So I saw him years ago. He and Candace Owens came, and I'll never forget. So I think I was in the state Senate at the time. So this is going to be 10, 12 years ago. And like I said, they weren't big names yet, but they were known. And I sat there watching the two of them kind of bouncing things off each other in this forum where they sat on stage and just took questions and did stuff. And I'm thinking, my gosh, these aren't just sharp people. This is like the future voice right here.
Patrick Bet David once called him to his face when he was talking to him that he thought he was the mix of Billy Graham and Rush Limbaugh in one person. The guy who advocates for faith in politics. I mean, he merged the two amazingly.
Those are two of my heroes.
Yeah. I mean, he was, like I said, he was our generation of conservatives. He was our biggest advocate and fighter. It's just, it's awful. And I mean, this on the heels of the, Irina Zarutska incident. I mean, violence appears to be, and I'm not like this. I'm not saying just strictly a Democrat, like nationwide, we have a violence problem. And I feel like evil is starting to get a latch into something. And if you kind of said it to me off air, it's almost like within the last 4 years, evil has been given a little bit too much room to operate.
Yeah.
And the only thing that can fix it is Jesus and prayer.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. That's the solution right there. Yeah, Charlene and I was telling you, so what JP's referring to is a conversation I was relating that I'd had with the lovely Charlene not long before I came to the studio today. And it was before we knew the news about Charlie Kirk. And I think we were just talking about the situation with Irina Zarutska being stabbed on this train. And I said, in the last few years, it's like evil was given so much free reign to do whatever it wanted to do. And you can look at any number of instances about that. But now evil is being curbed and trying to be checked and trying to be reined in. And so, in my opinion, evil is lashing out. And we're seeing a level of violence because evil is not being given the freedom to just cavort around and do whatever it feels like. And it's lashing out because of it. Here's another interesting dynamic about Charlie Kirk. This as a personal standpoint. So I go to Church of the Highlands. That's been our church now since 2009, I think. 2010, 2009. Anyway, the bottom line is Church of the Highlands is our church. And some of y'all may remember just about 5 years ago, out of the blue. I mean, Church of the Highlands has done more for the Birmingham community than I can even. I mean, I grew up in and around the Birmingham community myself. And between their Dream Center and the campuses they've got and the amount of money they pour into the community and the serve days, and when they raise money on, they have a special offering every year where they raise money just to be able to give it away to the community. They'll give it away to other churches. Anyway, out of the blue, somebody who needed a reason to have a beef on the Birmingham City Council started researching the Twitter feed of our senior pastor, Chris Hodges, and saw that he had merely hit like on a Charlie Kirk post. And suddenly it became a whole dox the church, Church of the Highlands is out. The city actually canceled or actually cut the city, the church out of certain properties that we have been leasing. Was not going to let us have the Dream Center where it had been. We had to do something different in the Woodlawn community, which we were making great strides in. We had contracts that were being canceled for no other reason except that he hit like on a Charlie Kirk post. And I, without betraying a confidence, I will tell you I've had a conversation with him since then, and he talked about how disappointing it was he had met Charlie Kirk personally, believed in him as a person, and that Kirk had said something faith-based or something, and he just hit like. And that was enough for people on the extreme left anti-church crowd to then go viral with it. And what really bugged me too was liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin, who at one point had said how thankful he was that Church of the Highlands was willing to be in the Woodlawn area doing the things they were doing, and also moving out into West Birmingham and all that. That liberal Mayor Randall Woodfin went silent and said nothing. He could have easily stood up and said, "Stop it. This church has done more for our community than anybody else around." But no, he hit like on a Charlie Kirk post, and the left used that to try and unravel what had been done. Just amazing. It's just amazing.
Anybody who gets into politics ends up at religion eventually, or faith, spirituality, because politics is the expression, but this is not a fight against flesh and blood. This is evil.
Yeah.
And there's
principalities and powers.
There's evil people out there. Politics is the expression in the way that we fight against evil, but it is much deeper than just, Republican, Democrat. This is a fight against evil. And unfortunately, evil showed its face again today against Charlie Kirk. And it's just very sad.
It did. I did see, by the way, the White House has spoken twice. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has asked for people to pray. And so did Vice President J.D. Vance. No statement yet that I'm aware of from President Trump, although they know each other. There was a picture a moment ago of Charlie Kirk in the Oval Office most recently. You can tell because of some of the decorations that it was most recent. Well, of course, he wouldn't have been there in their Biden years, so it had to be recently. But yeah, this is an amazing event. By the way, it happened at
Utah Valley
University.
I think it's either Utah Valley, Utah Valley State, Valley.
Yeah, which is a small to medium sized, university in a red state. Utah being a red state. Jason Chaffetz, former Utah congressman, who is now a Fox News contributor, he was actually there, and he's right now on Fox News talking about being at the event right now.
And this was the first event of a tour he was going on nationwide to all the colleges. This was the kickoff event, and he was literally 20 minutes into answering his first question on transgenderism before he was shot. So this was a big deal. This was I believe the name of the tour was the Prove Me Wrong tour. This was the kickoff event for it, and it's unfortunate.
A couple of quick text messages in 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. David in Huntsville says, thanks for the prayers for Charlie Kirk and family and for yours and JP's testimonies. Thanks, David. BL from Huntsville says, awesome monologue earlier. Can you give me that Teddy Roosevelt quote again? I don't see it in your monologue notes on the website. Actually, I think what you heard was a George Patton quote. It was a George Patton. So there was a George Patton quote in the monologue, and that was posted. You got it. Yeah. It's up
on the website. To go to the monologue section.
Yeah. So the one you maybe asking for, BL is going to be a George Patton quote. Allie from Athens says, in Jesus' name, amen. Let the fire that is in Charlie Kirk's spirit burn more brightly and his voice be heard more clearly for your kingdom purposes, Lord. There's a text prayer right there. That's good stuff. Chappie from Madison says, hey, brother, for using your platform to uphold Charlie Kirk in prayer today. It's just another reason I love being a right side ruffian. Thank you, Chappie. Appreciate it. Let's take a break. We'll try to get an update on this, and we'll keep you posted as we go along. More to come, and I might just dive right on into the materials, too, when we get back. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In a military intelligence unit, and coincidentally, run across Manuel Noriega in the parking lot. Of our, because he was an MI guy.
Food truck, and y'all were standing in line together, or what?
No, but he was a military intelligence guy. So I was in a military intelligence unit, and at the time, he's only probably a major or whatever, but he was already pretty well known, and he showed up, and he obviously very easy individual to identify.
You were there later,
and then years later we go back and bag him. But anyway, so I'm kind of enjoying this military intelligence job. And then one day I'm sitting on the beach, and I know this is a really long answer to your original question, but I'm sitting on the beach, and these three Hueys fly low level right over the top of us with shooters in the back and their legs out the door. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I really want to do that. And so it sort of re-energized me. I applied for flight school and I got in. Had I not gotten into flight school, I probably would have separated from the military, because I did like it, but I felt like there was something more. But getting to flight school was then a game changer.
All right, so you got to flight school. So warrant officer candidate, become a warrant officer. What, W01, I guess. Go to flight school as a W01.
No, what's different today is that you actually get commissioned as a W1 pretty early in the pipeline. Back then, you didn't get it until you were done flight school. So you go through as a warrant officer candidate. And what it does is it changes your date of rank, is what it really does. I mean, you're still treated like, you're an idiot, whether you're a W1 or not, but your data rank changes.
You guys, but I made the joke earlier about the warrant officer mafia. Yeah. Y'all are as warrant officers, you're technicians, you're technical specialists. You have niche, basically skills and knowledge, but you're also this kind of in between that folks who are junior in rank or junior as officers always look at you like, I don't know what to do with you right now.
Right.
Can I tell you what to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And but y'all kind of ride in the middle a lot of times, it seems like.
And we're the ones that keep everything running.
And you are the ones that keep everything running.
Yeah.
There's the backbone of the Army and the NCO Corps, and then there's y'all that keep things running.
Right.
But all right, so you became a warrant officer. You went to flight school down at Fort Rucker, which is now called Fort Rucker again soon, it looks like.
Yeah.
But coming up, and we were talking about your raisings, so to speak, up there in New Hampshire. We're going to go forward into your story here in a few minutes. But what about being raised, where you were, who you were, with you or with, whatever else? What do you think instilled things in you that you wind up needing later on? Like, was it sports? Was it family? Was it faith? What did you see in your life that you looked later on like, I'm glad I had that because it built me up?
Yeah, faith is certainly part of it. Now, my faith journey had its ups and downs, and the lowest point probably being post Somalia, when looking back at what happened there, based on what we were trying to do, in my mind, there was no justification for the horrors that occurred there, and I couldn't accept it, because it was horrible. I mean, there's not a lot of things I've witnessed that were as bad as what happened there, and we were there for all the right reasons. So anyway, but faith is certainly part of who I am, and it's come full circle. I think playing sports helped a lot too.
Was it hockey?
I played hockey. I played football. I mean, I wasn't great, but I played, and you learn about working and teamwork and your role in the organization to make the overall team a success. And those things to me are invaluable if you can learn them when you're young. So I think a combination of all those things.
Good enough. It's amazing sometimes what we draw on later. You don't even realize you've got it now. I can remember things as a kid that I didn't know that I grumbled about, and then later on you realize that instilled something.
Yeah.
So you went on, though, to do some pretty amazing stuff. So in the world of aviation, Army aviation, the 160th, which you're wearing the shirt right now.
I am wearing the shirt.
You are wearing the shirt.
By design.
Night Stalkers. So the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. I remember when I first got in, we called them Task Force 160.
Right.
But you guys were the premier Special Operations rotary wing guys. And how did you... I've never heard what is like. I know what selection is like to go to Ranger School. I know what selection is like to go to the Q course for Special Forces. But there's a selection process to go to the 160th. Am I right?
No, yeah. It's very similar, actually.
All right. So tell me about that.
So when I
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. So we're tracking the whole thing with Charlie Kirk, and that will definitely be something that we're touching base with several times. By the way, JP did tell me a minute ago they've identified the shooter. There was a piece up on, in fact, CNN is doing it now. CNN has a chyron up at the bottom of their screen right now that says Charlie Kirk was shot from a campus building 200 yards away, which would indicate this was a rifle shot as opposed to a close-in small arms, like a sidearm kind of thing.
Yeah.
But what did you find out about who they arrested?
Oh, there's reports that there's this guy named Michael Mallinson, I think is how you pronounce it, Democratic Party member from Utah.
We already know he's a Democratic Party member?
Yeah, that's what reporters are saying. So Michael Mallinson is the name that's out there right now.
Did you say he looked like he's an older man?
Oh, yeah, he's older. Like he's...
Careful. I'm older.
So, I mean, that's the picture that is going around out there. So he's an older
like
gentleman.
Somebody's grandpa.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks like the pastor of a Presbyterian church.
Yeah.
Which that describe your uncle, my brother. Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, we'll keep track. But I got to tell you, the first, I'm changing my order around. I have every single day we do the triple dipper, and I've got the first dipper was going to be the war on wokeness. The third dipper today was going to be the fact that Trump derangement syndrome is just real. Well, we're looking at it right now, and I'm gonna dive into that. I'm gonna bring that up to the first. I do have a call right now, so I'll take the call real quick. Line one. Hey, Mark, Phil Williams, how are you?
Doing good. One of these situations, and think you're handling the way you're talking about this the right way, and there's some stuff, and I know you've been in the political world. How are they not getting to a point? Like, to me, it would be like a simple legislation where if you kill somebody and it's not in self-defense, whether it's with a rope, whatever, staple gun, whatever, why can't they take care of this stuff and really make it harsher? I mean, I think I looked up just a few seconds ago, like if you get in for murder, like the average sentence is like 7 to 13 years. And to me, it's almost gotten to the point there's not a deterrent. People are not afraid anymore of this. And to me, it's just insane. And like some of the laws could be so easy with some of this stuff. And if ever, I mean, I've got people that I'm a Christian, but I mean, there's been people that I just cannot stand. And I've even, I'll even say, I probably hated them, but never once have I ever thought, I'm going to kill you. Mm-hmm. And, so it's just, I don't know, it's sad. I mean, whether you're political side, Democrat or Republican, you should never want anybody to be dead. And some of these politicians and people, when they say it like Tim Walz or somebody, like hoping that Trump's dead, I mean, you should be like, okay, you shouldn't be able to serve anybody because you're not the right temperament.
You stepped over the line,
Democrat or Republican.
Stepped way over the line. You're right. Yeah. With regards to the first part of your question about the lack of penalties that are deterrent, that's absolutely the case. Now I don't know where you look those up because every state's going to have their own version of penalties and sentencing. Some states have mandatory minimum sentencing, some don't. And then you have federal that can be different than state. So it depends on the nature of the crime, the venue of the crime. Where were the standards that you looked up? Do you know?
I'm in Alabama. I'm in Madison, Alabama.
Okay.
And they said it was just granted it wasn't on just a regular site, but I had just looked up, what's the average sentence for murder in the state of Alabama, and they just said, anywhere from 7 to 13 years.
Yeah, and you got to look
that blew me away.
You got to look at whether it's manslaughter, murder one, and then some states involve in the course of committing another crime, like a violent crime against someone in an armed robbery, that kind of thing. So They have what's called inchoate crimes, which is where you have other things built in to the criminal action. And then you have states that just do their own thing. And then you have some states that basically almost do nothing because they're run by liberals who are more soft on the perpetrator than they are on the victims. Thanks. Hey, Mark, thanks for the call. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. I think this is going to be the attention grabber for the day, and rightfully so. But the truth of the matter is, we're looking at just evil trying to have its way, and we're not going to give it its day. We'll talk about it because it needs to be confronted. That's the point. We will talk about it because it needs to be confronted. It needs to be dealt with head on. You don't look at something like this and say, I can't address that, or I don't feel comfortable talking about it. You talk about it, by God. You talk about it. You bring it out to the forefront. You shine a light on it, and you make sure that the world knows that this horrific attack serves no purpose. It just proves that the left has no message. Their only message is to resort to violence. Their only message is to try and say, hate Trump and all bad. And, you can watch some of the things that happen on social media and believe the world's a mess. It's not. The world is not entirely a mess. Social media is not the real world, but I will tell you that what's happened right now is a very real situation with Charlie Kirk. They're putting pictures on Fox right now of him playing with his small children on the beach. All right, we're going to keep praying and watching. And we get back, I'm going to talk about the fact that this is not a singular event, because Trump derangement syndrome, y'all, is real. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Out about the unit. I was in Korea, and at the time, it was still what we call a black organization, meaning nobody publicly acknowledged that it existed because it had just been formed in the aftermath of the attempted rescue of the Iranian hostages.
Right.
That's why the unit was created, because the analysis indicated that, look, you can't just throw together a bunch of assets and go try to do a complicated mission like this. It's not going to work. And so they created the unit, and there was going to be a second attempt, but most people don't know that. But the unit started training long-range missions in the desert, all the things that were required to go prosecute that target. And we're pretty much getting to the point where they were ready to go, and then the hostages got released. But the smartest decision maybe ever made by our government was, okay, well, the hostages are released, but we still need this capability. So let's keep the organization intact, fund it, obviously, because everything runs on funding, unfortunately. And today, I mean, it's just an amazing organization. It's gotten more amazing over the years. So when I found out about it, it was, like I said, it was still black. And it's like people whispered about it in bars, and it's like, wow, I read Tom Clancy books. That sounds really cool, And I was getting assigned to Fort Campbell, which is where the headquarters for the 160th is. So I'm thinking, all right, I go to Fort Campbell, I walk across the street, knock on the door, say, hey, I'm interested, what do I need to do? And I made the mistake of signing into the 101st Airborne Division before I went and talked to the 160th. And by doing that, committed me to 2 years in the 101st. But in the end, best thing that could have happened to me.
Got a lot of stick time doing that.
I did get a lot of stick time, and in Korea, I'd flown medevac. And medevac is, it's great experience. You got to make a lot of decisions on the fly, quick response, bad weather, and you're flying by yourself. I was 22 years old. I'm flying real world medevac missions, as the pilot in command.
No kidding. Yeah.
You mature fast or you die. Yeah. That's basically how it works.
And others die with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was great experience. But what I didn't have is multi-ship, meaning like formation flying, not a lot of, I had a decent amount of night vision goggle time, but not a ton. And you really need a lot of night vision goggle time to do well at the 160th. So getting that extra 2 years on 101st really helped me out. I went to the instructor pilot school while I was in the 101st. So now I'm an IP. I got much more time. I got a lot more formation flying experience.
Yeah.
And then the process begins. So the assessment, again, it's a volunteer organization. So everybody that goes there on the pilot side is a volunteer. And then you have to go through an assessment, a lot like some of these other special units that you're familiar with. It's a psych eval, it's a swim test, physical fitness test, flight eval, board, all that stuff. And it happens in about a 3 or 4 day period. The board's always the most dramatic because you show up with your dress uniform on, you go in there and a bunch of people look like they want to hit you. And they ask you very difficult questions and try to put you in uncomfortable situations. And, there is no right answer. They just want to see how you answer the question, what your makeup is. And that just begins the process. So then you enter Green Platoon if they decide to take you. Green Platoon has changed quite a bit, but, by the time you start to end, it's about 10 months. Where you're going through, again, land navigation, life-saving, physical fitness, just, all the things that, soldiering in general require at a high level. And then you start basic nav, where you're navigating in the cockpit with a map and a compass. Because even today, I think the priority is, hey, look, you need to know how to navigate, even though you got multiple systems in the aircraft that'll get you there.
Right.
When I was first in, GPS wasn't even in the aircraft
No,
yet.
not at all.
The global positioning system, I'm assuming everybody knows what that is. But so we really did rely on a paper map and a compass. But you have to, hit targets in the middle of nowhere at night with very limited resources, and be able to do it every time, plus or minus 30 seconds. And it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, depending on where you're trying to go, that can be a pretty difficult task.
I can tell you it's hard doing it on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys have a different terrain markers from up there, but you're also flying by it a lot faster, so you're
Correct.
having to keep
You
track
can
with
miss
the
it
terrain.
pretty quickly, yeah.
Exactly.
So it starts with the planning process. You got to pick the right checkpoints, in order to help you find your way. And then you learn the aircraft systems, because the aircraft have different systems than the conventional force does. So you got to learn how all that works. Then you got to learn the special tactics, like things like fast rope maneuvers and aerial refueling now.
I was going to ask about that.
All of that stuff is all unique to the unit. So you have to learn all that and demonstrate proficiency.
Was
Ship
Black Hawk
landing.
your airframe at the time too, right away?
Well, it was for me. It's different now because it's a pretty expensive aircraft to fly to put all those hours on it. So now they actually start out in little birds, which are the Hughes 500s, basically, for all that basic nav stuff, and then they move to the advanced aircraft.
Okay.
So again, all that takes about 10 months. And then again, kind of like Jared said, then you arrive at the unit and you're still nobody, because you're the FNG, basically, if anybody knows what that acronym stands for.
It's the one we won't say, but
I
yeah.
mean, there are people that won't even talk to you. I mean, you have not proven yourself. You just because you got through Green Platoon means nothing, right? You have to then make your way through the progression, basic mission qualified, full mission qualified, and then the ultimate level is flight lead.
And I'm assuming Green Platoon actually weeds people out too.
Oh, yeah.
So you have some that are there and they're not there the next day.
Oh, you lose people in assessment, you lose people in all phases of Green Platoon, and then you lose some people once they get to the unit, because either the deployment schedule is too much for them, or they just aren't performing the way you thought they were going to perform, even though they got through all that. When the rubber actually meets the road, sometimes it doesn't work out.
Was it of any benefit to you at all that you had your Spanish language skills that were already there? I mean,
No,
in
probably
some special
not.
operations, they want a language skill to be attached to it, but is that necessary at all in aviation?
No, not really. No, I think in that case, it probably didn't help me a whole lot. I mean, the more you know about the more things, it's obviously going to help you in life, but I can't think of a specific example where that helped me out.
So you guys, you said you had some flying with nods and night vision ahead of your time going to Green Platoon and getting into the 160th, but you guys fly with it a lot when you're in the 160th, right? Is that one of the things that differentiates the 160th capabilities, aside from the airframe having some other capabilities too? But is flying with nods a big part of what y'all do?
Yeah, certainly at the time. I would say now there's maybe the focus is broader, I mean, across the entire military.
Yeah.
But, the unit was pioneers in night vision goggle flight. I mean, our guys were the ones that came up with the idea. When I went through flight school, we actually flew with what are called full face goggles, meaning they have a frame around them where you cannot see anything other than what you see through the tubes.
And we're going to be going to the phones here momentarily. I got several text messages. Let me see if I've got one in here that I want to grab real quick. Adam from Athens says, I'm not one to promote violence, but if these things continue to happen, yeah, I get it. I see where he's going, but I get it. And yes, that's not actually the right answer. Let's don't go down that road. Righteous anger does not necessarily have to involve violence, but it also means we don't sit still, does it? Not at all. Not at all. And I would bet right now that in the event that we wind up having, something, like bad news out of this, I guarantee you there's going to be a whole lot of, I would say, growth in the conservative voice. There's a lack of patience anymore for this kind of absolute leftist violence because someone dares to have a different opinion.
This just radicalized a bunch of, and when I say that too, I'm also not talking about violence. I'm talking about passionate outspokenness from
Yeah.
the young conservatives. Because, like I said, this was our voice. Like, he was our leading voice, and this is going to cause a lot of young conservatives. They're just going to get even louder. You know, you're not going to scare us. We're just going to get even louder.
Yeah. On the phone right now is our own Emily Jones. So Emily is with Moms for Liberty out of Madison, the very first chapter of Moms for Liberty in the state of Alabama. Moms for Liberty, of course, being a national movement that gains notoriety. You know, as TPUSA, Charlie Kirk's organization, was growing, Moms for Liberty was also launching. Emily Jones, how you doing?
I've had better days. How about you?
Yeah, well, that's kind of the way I feel. It is. I don't know if you saw it or not, too, Em, but we just saw literally like seconds ago, Fox News is saying that Charlie Kirk is alive, but he's in critical condition. That's what we know right now.
Yes. Yeah, I'm glued to the TV. I never watch Fox News, but today I turned them on.
Well, give me your thoughts. I mean, you're part of an organization that has had its own threats and problems and attacks, and tell me what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we were actually talking about it earlier. How obviously none of this is about us, but how it changes everything. It changes the landscape, changes how you approach events. But I mean, kind of like you and JP were saying, it doesn't stop us. It doesn't mean we take a step back or we cower or we hide. It just means that we've got a few more steps we have to go through to ensure safety. But I mean, it encourages us even more to do even more things in a non-violent but very loud way. And that seems to be the resounding message from everybody is we've kind of lost the patience, like you said. We're done playing the games and being nice about it. Now we're coming out swinging and non-violently, of course. But we're not backing off. Like we're going to fight harder now.
Figuratively speaking, yeah, they have just I think they've just stepped in it. They have stepped in it hard. But
yeah.
You know, that being said, I remember your most recent event that I was proud to be there that night in Huntsville. You had Marjorie Taylor Greene speak, and she's of course a firebrand. She draws her own fire, and you know there's an old thing in the it's kind of a joke, a euphemism, but like it's dark humor in the military. We used to go, all right, step out boldly and draw fire. That's what we used to say, and Marjorie Taylor Greene does that politically. I mean, she steps out and draws fire all the time. Your event that night, we had protesters outside. We had to have extra police there, and they actually had to put paper up on the windows so that you wouldn't have protesters staring in or create the risk of them, you know, shooting in for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that was exactly. I mean, we had, beyond what everybody could see, we had additional security in the room that, you know, plain clothes, all that for event, you know, situations just like this, because it's one thing to keep everybody safe, but very much like you're talking about, when you're part of a national organization, you have to take the extra precautions because it just makes you that much more of a target. So we put a lot of effort into security that night. We always do, but we'll have to increase that even more. And, you know, the crazy thing is we had been talking to Charlie's team about trying to have an event with him here. You know, it probably won't be till next year, but I was on the phone with his chief of staff, you know, 6 weeks ago, trying to figure out when we can make it happen and all the logistics with it. So it's definitely a surreal moment.
It's a very surreal moment. It's a very surreal moment. And it's one of those, you know, I don't know that I can, well, you know what, I will. There are certain icons, there are certain people that you find yourself looking up to, and they have yet to give you a reason not to. And I remember when Donald Trump was shot last year, it was just, you know, one of those freeze you in your tracks kind of moments. And today I'm sitting in studio, literally going over my final notes. We're doing all the checks, making sure we got everything in order to jump on the air and do Rightside Radio. And this story breaks on the news. And JP told me about it first. And it's one of those kind of freeze you in your tracks moments, because Charlie Kirk, in my opinion, has been one of the leading conservative voices. And JP made the point a moment ago, jump in if you want to, bud, that for his generation, this is the voice.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, well, it's one of those things. I mean, we'll always remember where we were when we heard this. I literally just walked through the door coming home to take care of some things, and I got a phone call, told me, and I just paused, like froze my tracks, a million things rushing through my head of where does this leave us now?
Yeah.
So it's definitely the final moment.
Well, you've had some amazing people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Riley Gaines. You're looking at maybe Charlie Kirk. I mean, you're bringing in heavyweights. And I've seen some of these same folks, and it's the level of security is unbelievable. What you got with it, Jim?
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, nothing really gets to me that much. I feel like I've seen almost everything, but I mean, I'm very much still shaken up by this news. Like it's just one of those things. I mean, but specifically with it being Charlie Kirk, I mean, just I know how much he means to my generation of conservatives, and it's just awful. One of those just shocking things. You still really can't even believe it's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not, like I said, nothing really shakes me up, and this is still shaking me up pretty good.
Emily, has your national organization put out a statement or anything yet? Do you know?
They very well may have. I've honestly not looked because I've been trying to do like the constant updates to see what the news was on him. So I've not even looked.
Well, we'll take a look here momentarily. But listen, appreciate you as always, Emily Jones with Moms for Liberty out of Madison. Also, oh, by the way, the one of our podcasters with the Controversial Mom podcast comes out every week. Appreciate you and what you stand for.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
See you, Em. Yeah, Joe in Tennessee just texted in. He said, "Time to not be afraid, but get louder. Darn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." I agree, and I think what you're going to wind up seeing is, the level of violence from the left. There's Scott Jennings, by the way, on CNN speaking right now. I'm glad to see. By the way, it almost made me mad earlier to see Brian Stelter talking about Charlie Kirk. Like, you don't deserve to talk about him, dude.
Yeah.
Scott Jennings, I can certainly live with that. I mean, that's
well, MSNBC has already speculated right off the bat that it was one of Charlie Kirk's supporters who shot the gun in celebration. It's like,
that's lame.
Can you hold off on for your virtue signaling or trying to make everything political for just a second and just report on the fact that a father, husband, son was just shot in front of everybody?
I got to tell you, so I have this dipper set up. I called it Trump derangement syndrome is real, but it's about the left's inability to tolerate an opposing message. And I'll tell you, I have, especially like in state politics myself, I can remember standing in the well of the Senate debating Democrats, and I never minded debating someone who was a true believer in their position, who had the ability to converse about why they felt the way they did. I don't mind that. I mean, that kind of back and forth discourse is a part of what's supposed to happen in a free and open society. What is not supposed to happen is someone speaks and someone else shoots. That's not what's supposed to happen. That doesn't work that way in a free society. The rule of law is what we live by. The idea of law and order, earlier I referred to it as that fine line between order and chaos. It has to be maintained. And so the appearances that I make on CNN occasionally are typically on Abby Phillips' show on Newsnight with Abby Phillip at CNN up in New York. I'll be heading back next week, I believe. Scott Jennings was there the other night. He talked about an all-star panel. I got to thinking, man, I'd love to have been on that one. I'd have been geeking out big time because they had an all-star panel. They had Scott Jennings, Ben Shapiro, Anna Kasparian, and Van Jones. And then, of course, Abby hosting it. I thought, good Lord, that's a lineup. But in the course of that conversation, Red State has a piece that came out a couple of days ago. Said Scott Jennings had some backup when Ben Shapiro showed up on CNN, and the two of them teamed up to thoroughly dismantle Abby Phillips' overwhelmingly left-wing panel, and Anna Kasparian had a complete meltdown. She did. And basically, Ben Shapiro would say something, and it would just drive them to the point of almost yelling. And you look at it and go, if you can't do better than that, if you can't have the measure of discourse necessary to convincingly convey your point, then you are missing it. You don't have an argument. All you do is argue. There's a big difference. There's a big difference between having an argument and just arguing. But yeah, right now what we're watching is the left is melting down on a regular basis, just in complete disgust with anything that the right stands for. Got a piece here from Fox that came out. What's today? It came out actually today. Says Trump foes are melting down now that SCOTUS is unleashing quote unquote racial terror on the U.S. That level of rhetoric that the left throws in on things is a part of what drives this train. When you incite people with inflammatory rhetoric that does not match the actual events taking place. For instance, what they're talking about here is the Supreme Court of the United States yesterday ruled that the Trump administration can proceed with its ICE roundups in California. California trying to stop it, obviously. So California Democrats slammed it and called it both un-American and a parade of racial terror. What do you think happens when you have somebody who's already on the edge and you start telling them, you're living in racial terror? They're going to come haul you. I saw one that said, some California politician who said, because I speak Spanish, now they can scoop me up on the street and disappear me. What a stupid, inflammatory thing to say. No, they can't. Because you know why? You're going to pull out your driver's license and you're going to show them who you are because allegedly you're a good citizen. And you're going to say, I am an American citizen. They're going to say, thank you for your time. And it's not that hard. And guess what? If they don't, then you've got a lawsuit against them, but that's not what's happening. They're not scooping people up because they speak Spanish. The Supreme Court of the United States said it is reasonable to believe that foreigners who are here illegally might have some tells, if you will, and that it is not unreasonable for ICE to say, if that person has no ID, if that person speaks in a foreign language, if that person cannot prove their citizenship, they may be illegal. And yet they're going to call it a parade of racial terror and blatantly illegal. It's unbelievable.
Stuff like this, I hope the media reflects on the language they use with certain things. I mean, even yesterday, Van Jones talking about Charlie Kirk himself, saying that how he talked about the Irina Zaritska murder was racial fear-mongering and, trying to incite hatred.
The murderer is the one who walked away saying, I got me a white girl.
Yeah. I mean, but this is the result. The temperature has to be turned down.
We got to take a break. We'll take a break right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
We did flights during the daytime with filters on the ends of the tubes where the instructor can see, but you can't, because obviously that's the safest way to learn how to fly night vision goggles. But it's really difficult for the person actually flying under those conditions. I think I was actually the last class to ever fly full face goggles and do day filters. I'm not sure, but we made a transition right around that time. But it was guys at the unit who said, this is stupid. Cut the frame off, right? Because they're originally made for ground use, not air use.
Yeah.
So they cut the frame off and they made them flip up and there's been evolution after evolution.
They got the big cushion pad around.
Yeah,
and they're like,
the full
like
face
big.
ones. Yeah. They didn't last very long, but that's where it started, until somebody said, no, we need to change this. And then they came up with ideas like finger lights and lip lights and infrared lasers and infrared tracers and all these things that you can see with night vision goggles that you can't see with the unaided eye. All were, basically came from that early
So how much of that
stage.
training is done by simulators now? Do they do that?
A lot,
simulation?
a lot.
Yeah.
Simulators are really good. It was actually part of what I did after,
At Pinnacle.
I transitioned out, was working that field. And it's a tremendous cost saver and safety. You can do things in a simulator that are sometimes impossible to do in the aircraft, but certainly safer to do in a simulator. And you can do it cost effectively, because a lot of what's going on in the aircraft today that are advanced is mission management. It's not so much moving the sticks around, it's pushing buttons and understanding how to use the integrated avionics. And you don't need to learn how to do that in a aircraft that costs whatever, $10,000 an hour to fly. Now, I'm not saying you don't need stick time. Okay, that's the trap that some bean counters tend to fall into. That
There's always that seat of the pants feel that
yes,
changes things.
and actually the Army has come to realize that the aircraft they've been using for primary flight training at Fort Rucker now probably isn't the best, because you're not doing enough actual stick flying. There's a lot of automated systems on board that help the aircraft, or help you as a pilot, that you're losing that real ability to fly manually.
Yeah.
And they just did a pilot program where they're going to probably change how flight school is done, because there's been a realization that we got people that don't know how to fly a helicopter. I mean, they can mission manage all day long, but if they have to actually fly a bird, they're not as good as we used to be, unfortunately.
So let me ask you this: what now? The 160th, y'all are balls out a lot. So when you're flying, some of the stuff you're doing are not the things you would do or even be allowed to do in a conventional unit. But then you're also, like you said, you were back in the days when things were being pioneered. And I swear, I think it was you told me one time about strapping,
strapping a Gatling gun or something to the front of one of the birds just to try it out to see if it would work, and
Well-
it didn't work very well.
Well,
Am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, I was part of the group that created the Armed Black Hawk,
Okay.
and still the only place that it's used is at the 160.
All right.
And yeah, we were running with scissors. I mean, we put a 50 cal, and these things are being mounted just on what was originally intended to be a door gunner pintle mount. So it's not really structurally designed to hold, a fixed forward weapon, but we modified it to where it could. And I mean, we
A little
had
duct tape, a little zip tie.
Oh, plenty of duct tape. Yeah, even coat hangers. I mean, you name it, whatever it took. But it was an amazing time to be there because you could go from sitting in the team room saying, "Man, it would be cool if we could do this," to convincing the leadership that there's some risk here, but we think we can mitigate it. Let's go try it. To then, that worked. Writing a requirement and actually getting it turned into something that is fielded, and then go shoot it in combat. I mean, there's probably nowhere else in the world you could say that. And I experienced that on more than one occasion.
So what was the craziest thing you can remember y'all did and thought, "Man, we're never going to do that again"? The one that you sit around at 160th reunions going, "Remember that time?"
Yeah. Well, one of the most amazing stories, and I've told it many times. I like to joke that I shot myself down 5 times. And the most dramatic one, and none of it my fault, but the most dramatic one. So back to this pintle mount with a minigun on it. So a minigun is a 7.62 Gatling gun,
Right.
6-barrel. It'll shoot 6,000 rounds a minute at high rate. Okay, that is incredible. When people see video, like if you go online, you Google minigun night firing, keep in mind all those traces you're seeing, that's every 14th round. Okay, or every 15th round. It's 14-to-1 tracer mix usually. So even though it's a steady stream of tracers, there's 14 more rounds in between each one of those you're not seeing. That's how many rounds are going downrange. So we got one.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. So the situation with Charlie Kirk right now has obviously and rightfully been dominating the show thus far. I will tell you there are conflicting reports right now about his condition. I'm not going to go into it. I will just tell you there's conflicting reports. And until we really hear something, right now the AP is reporting that Charlie Kirk is in critical condition at a hospital, and that's up on Fox right now. And the same thing is being said by CNN. There was a conflicting report on social media, but we'll leave that alone for right now. We'll just say it's conflicting. We don't know his true status until there's a press conference or a release made. We'll withhold. All we know is that apparently he did make it to the hospital. That's all we know. The other thing that I will say is CNN just said a moment ago on their ticker that the shooter is actually not in custody, as a change to their storyline. I am not hearing any more about that at this point.
Well, there's video of a older gentleman getting arrested, yelling something about his rights. So somebody was arrested.
Somebody was arrested.
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe he was a part of the conspiracy as opposed to the shooter. I don't know. It's all said and done. It's a very fluid environment, and as these things typically are or want to do, social media gives them the ability to gain life and even to morph before you know it. I'm going to go to the phones right now because our friend Stan McDonald's actually on the line right now. Hey, brother Stan, how you doing?
I am very aware and alert to the situation and the moment in time that we're in right now. And I want to tell you, Phil, I want to affirm to you something that you already know. Your voice is very important right now. And I just want to say, be who you are, because you will be. You know how to rightly handle the words of life at a time like this. I want to give special note to something I heard JP say when I was walking by the radio a minute ago, where he talked about it's something special for him and his generation. You know, what Charlie Kirk has done in this movement these past few years has had a major impact on JP's generation. You can listen to JP for about 30 seconds and know that somebody has impacted him greatly for the good.
Yeah.
This is a time right now where one of the thoughts I have is that this is a distinction between believers and unbelievers, I fear and I believe. And this is just really a time to pray. But I tell you I think believers can understand is there is, I'll quote Ephesians 6 here. We are in a time of spiritual warfare, and the weapons of our warfare are not carnal.
Yeah.
But they're powerful through the power of God, for the pulling down of strongholds, the casting down of false imaginations. And there is a battle going on for the hearts and minds of people.
Yeah.
I would say, especially on college campuses, even. So, I tell you, it is unfortunately at times, and can be, and historically has been at times, life and death. Don't hear me trying to stoke anything. I'm simply saying that we didn't start this, but it's been with us for a while. And there is a spiritual battle. And I fear that some of those who make this a battle that's carnal, using flesh and using man-made ways, they don't understand nor accept or appreciate the sovereignty of God.
Yeah.
And those of us who do believe, we need to understand that God supersedes and rules over the affairs of men. We can trust and believe. We always have that. We always have that hope. And I think Charlie would endorse that all the more if he were here and could say that we have to believe all the more. So thank you for your voice. It's so very, very important.
Well,
and and we do call on our brothers to pray. We do in fact say pray, thoughts and prayers. That's what we have right now.
And that's the right
That's
thing
what
to
we
do.
have.
You're right. And brother, I appreciate you. The music's already playing, which means I got to go to break.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
love you, appreciate you. And for those who are wondering, yes, that is the same Stan McDonald who sponsors the daily Right Side Way monologue. I told you he was a good guy. Told you he was. All right, listen, we're going to come right back. More on this. This is the fluid environment we're in. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Side. And the way that we fix forward mounted them is we put this, we call it a diaper pin. It was a pin that went through the pivot, which, because, if it's a door gunner, they're going to want to be able to pivot it, right?
Right.
We have to fix that. So we put a brace to hold it vertically, and then we put this pin through the shaft it's rotating on to hold it horizontally. And then it's a diaper pin because it goes around and it has a hook on the end that connects on the end.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
Which sounds like that should be sufficient. Well, it is until it isn't. And I'm flying with Donovan Briley, who's a really good friend of mine, lost in Somalia, actually. First aircraft shot down. We're flying. He's in the right seat. I'm in the left. Night vision goggles. We're going in a range at Fort Knox. Live fire. No dry run. We got approval to usually have to make a dry pass to make sure there's nobody out there, but we got approval to go in hot. So we roll in. I'm flying. I pull the trigger, and the tracers are crossing in front of the nose. And so I
That's
let off.
bad, by the way.
Yeah, I let off
Don't
on the
cross
trigger.
the streams.
And I said, that is the worst expletive bore sight job I have ever seen in my life. So a bore sight is when you
Right.
orient the weapons to where they're going to impact where the sight is pointing, right? And Donovan, in classic Donovan style, says, Mike, I think we got a problem. So I look over, and I mentioned the finger lights earlier. Finger light is just a little battery-operated LED that is infrared, so you can't see it unless you're wearing goggles. We have some that you can see. This one you could see. And he turns on his finger light, and he points to the windshield. His minigun, that diaper pin can't come out while we were flying to Fort Knox. And when I pulled the trigger, the barrel rotation caused the gun to go left. You would think the wind would cause it to go right, but the barrel rotation caused it to go left.
Force.
And it shot through the cockpit. It missed his knee by like 3 inches. He's got 7.62 rounds all through the cockpit. The windshield's blown out. Glass has been, because I felt something in my eyes, and it turned out it was glass shards from the rounds going through the cockpit.
Mighty Mike.
And again, luckily, it hit. He had a armor panel on the side here, and the barrels hit the front of the armor panel, I think, but it stopped them from going any further, or it would come right through the cockpit and kill us both. And anyway, we landed, and what what I like to say about this story is, this is back when it seemed like we had a little bit of authority to do things that maybe you'd get crushed for today. So I'm thinking about, okay, nowhere in the manual does it say I can't have holes in the windshield to fly this bird. So we put duct tape, back to the duct tape, over the holes in the windshield, cranked it up, and flew it back to Fort Campbell.
No,
Today, that would probably get you
with your finger off the trigger the whole time.
we emptied the rounds out of the weapons, but that's probably the most dramatic thing that ever happened non-combat.
Yeah.
That I can come up with, and then there were 4 more of those that are less exciting. But
no, that's but yeah, that's definitely one of those you swap over a beer and like, oh, no, let me talk the time we shot ourselves down.
Yeah,
that's
so they don't use the diaper pins anymore. By the way.
All right, so op tempo for you, you're in the 160th. Operational tempo is higher than the average unit, I would imagine, but it's a lot of come and go. What's the op tempo like in the 160th?
Nonstop.
Yeah.
Again, I was out when 9/11 occurred. I'd retired 6 months prior.
Really?
Made me feel like I was sitting on the bench and considered what I could do to get back in. But with my injuries from Somalia, I couldn't fly operationally anymore. But the reason I bring that up is just to put this in perspective. The rotation for our guys during the War on Terror was 90 days on, 90 days off. So you're in theater 90 days, either Iraq or Afghanistan, you're back for 90, then back in. There are guys who did 30 rotations, 30 in combat. And when I say combat, I mean combat.
Yeah.
They're hitting multiple targets.
Just plain right.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. I forgot where I was. Southeast U.S. of A. I do that sometimes.
Well,
I have too many things going on in front of me.
We're not in the Pacific Northwest of that.
We are
that
not.
helps, yeah.
Yeah, last I checked, I am not in New England. This is the southeast U.S. of A. Anyway, bottom line is I usually say this thing about we can see all of y'all on radio, podcasting, and of course our live stream. Thank you. Now that I've totally botched my little diatribe.
It's the thought that counts.
okay. Hey, let me get a couple of quick texts and I'll go to the phone. Roughly Ann from Huntsville says, Phil and JP, have you seen the video? I stumbled onto it and I'm forever changed. It is so violent. God help Charlie.
Yeah, I wish I didn't.
Yeah, I have not seen the one that JP saw. I saw a video. And there's another one actually just came up on my screen here as I'm sitting here, and I'm betting this is probably one of the ones that, yeah, there it was. Oh, goodness. I don't know his status. We don't know his status right now. We're just praying for him. David from Huntsville says, anything like this motivates me incredibly more, and I hope others too. He said, remember the Alamo, Pearl Harbor, 9/11. Pray for Christians and conservative leaders. Indeed. And then Dave from Capshaw says, if I'm not mistaken, after Trump was shot, some in the media and other Democrats grudgingly admitted that some of their rhetoric and hyperbole needed to be toned down. I knew when they said it that they wouldn't last. Well, it's gotten way out of hand. The rhetoric on the left is now filled with what I would call incensing words, the kind that incenses people to violence and to fear. Listen, when all you do is give someone fear, when all you do is preach fear to them, you're going to get fight or flight. Many of them are going to run around screaming with their hair is on fire, Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And then some who are already unstable in all their ways are going to wind up lashing out. And that's what we've been seeing. Let me jump on the phone real quick. He's already on. Yeah, Jeff Rowe from Indiana. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm doing better than Charlie Kirk. Anyway.
Yeah. Sure
prayers
enough.
and blessings upon him and his family.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. He's been a true voice. I mean, I think he is part of the reason why Trump won so big last year. I'll be honest with you. I think his movement among the younger generation of voters is a big part of the overwhelming landslide victory we saw last year.
Yeah, I guarantee it. Yeah, he's had a great influence on many young people and everything. Because we kind of see where he joins these universities at and everything, and it just kind of, you can separate the good from the bad, the ones that come up and actually support him, and the ones that are just basically brain dead liberals and don't have any clue how to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Because all they can do is shout names and stuff.
Yeah.
But now is the kind of a time, I've had enough of this stuff and everything, and we need to, fight back with at least with our words and stuff. Right now would be a good time to see what all kind of crazy posts are out there, wishing death upon this man, and kind of tag those people and note that these are not just brain dead people. These are really.
Yeah, and you broke up there slightly, but I think what
On
you're
this
saying
man.
is you broke up there, brother. You said these are not brain dead people. These are what?
These are evil people. Anybody who's wishing death upon Charlie right now, because it's out there, the crazy libs are just, basically wishing death upon this man, and glad that he got shot.
Yeah.
You need to kind of, we need to do what they do. If you see somebody with a post like that on there, say something. Just put shame on there. Do something. Let them know that these people are evil. They're just, that we're not going to tolerate this kind of stuff, and we'll let them know that just who they are.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think you confront it when you see it. Don't sit silently. Don't be the people who sat on the train and let the young Lord bleed out. And make sure you're the one. Make sure you're the one who, in the end, is counted as the one who did or said something that needed to be done or said. I did see, by the way, Charlene just sent me an image, a screenshot. Andy No, who is he's got a huge following on social media. He just posted pictures of liberals on Blue Sky crowing about the shooting of Charlie Kirk. It's already happening. We knew it would. There's sick people in this world. But the bottom line is this: our God is bigger than that. Our God is much bigger than that. And we're going to continue to pray for his situation and pray that his voice is not gone.
Exactly.
Well,
and like I say, it just take notes of who's doing these things and everything, and just realize that these are not people you need to ever be around again.
Nope, absolutely. And on the one hand, we're not going to go out like Great Britain right now and start knocking on doors if you said mean things on social media. But I don't think that means we have to put up with it. Arresting somebody or telling them, that they're going to be dragged in by, the police if they say something that we find offensive is not what's going to happen. But what needs to happen is people need to get on there and start chiming in on their posts and saying, you're a reprehensible, godless buffoon for even saying things like that. Just go ahead and confront them and tell them that won't be tolerated. You can take it somewhere else.
Yeah. Do the Maxine Waters thing. Just shout them down and tell them that they're not welcome anymore.
I don't ever want to be accused of using a Maxine Waters playbook. So let's don't. I don't want to be that. All right, brother, where are you at on the road right now? You already north?
I've just passed the main part of Nashville, and I'm in between here and the suburbs. Yeah,
dude, you've had a good week. This has been good so far. All right. Well, listen,
that's the way we like it.
Appreciate you as always. Blessings on you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good one.
See you, man.
Charlie.
Thank you, bud. I saw that Morgan B from South Georgia. I love Morgan B. Morgan B. Anyway, says, don't watch the video. He said, I'm in tears at my desk, sick to my stomach. We're created in the image of the Father, and all life is precious. Morgan B. in Georgia. Yes, indeed. Morgan B., by the way, I got to tell you, I see your stuff on Facebook. You do some really cool, fun stuff. Thank you very much for that. Listen, I got to tell you too, I just a moment ago got a text from someone I love who said that they are at a conference and that they heard the news about Charlie Kirk, said something about it, and one of her coworkers literally responded with a big smile saying, is he dead yet? And said it just made her sick to her stomach. That kind of stuff. It's not okay. It's not. And by the way, you don't have to pretend like it is. You don't have to uncomfortably chuckle and pretend like that wasn't a big deal, because that's a big deal. Who does that? Who would walk up to someone at a funeral and insult the dead person? Who does that? Who walks up to a loved one of someone who's missing and says evil things about them while they're in the middle of suffering or healing or in the aftermath of an accident, or for that matter, just, on any given day? Who does that? Who walks up and says stuff like that and then expects for it to be okay. The problem that we've got with social media is while it may connect us, yes, and while it may give people voice, yes, and while it may get stories like Irina Zarutska out that we might not have seen otherwise, what it also does, though, is it stokes what I call the keyboard courage of people who sit in their underwear in mommy's basement and type out some of the most reprehensible things that they would never say to your face, ever. Even in my time in politics, I can just tell you, there were people I went to Sunday school with, no kidding, people I went to church with, who would say the worst things about me on social media that they would never say to me in passing in the church hallway, which, by the way, there's a whole other sidebar there. It's the church hallway. That being said, that kind of behavior is not okay, and you don't have to pretend like it is. You don't. I will say this. I got a news story here from 1819 that's that I think Democrats right now are about to find themselves truly in the hot seat. Yesterday, I did a thing, and I called it the Trump trap. Trump has got Democrats on their heels right now because they recognize that they cannot pretend that their lack of policies and their inability to curb crime is anything but a problem. They can't pretend anymore. Why? Because Trump has been calling them out on it. And so what's happening right now is what I call the Trump trap is something that I think we all need to join in on. If you live in Birmingham, there is no reason for you, regardless of whether you voted for Woodfin or not, to be satisfied with the fact that you live in one of the murder capitals of our nation. If you live in, I don't know, anywhere, and your local leadership is not providing safe streets, you should demand safe streets because one of the essential services, the actual essential services of government, is to provide safety for its citizens. It just is. It's the same as providing, clean water and roads to drive on. You provide law and order. And in the absence of that, you have a right to say something. Before I go to the break, let me jump on the phone real quick. Robert from Athens. Hey, Robert, how you doing?
Oh, man, pretty good. Prayers go out to the young man.
Yeah.
I liked him. But I believe the FCC, I believe Trump needs to go to the FCC and have these national news medias try to get something done for them fomenting violence. They do it. The people that they have on do it. And even the Congress people, they do it. So something has got to be done with them people.
Yeah, it's a fine line between
2 Democrats on the FCC and 1 Republican, I think. But that needs to be looked into because
I
think a lot of them need
the thing to be careful. Hey, Robert, the thing to be
down.
careful there real quick. The thing to be careful there with is censorship is a slippery slope. Once you start telling people they can't speak, it's a difference between calling for a toning down of the rhetoric. It's a difference between being leadership than using official government action to actually tell people when or how they're allowed to speak.
I got that part. But if what they're saying is hurting the people of the United States, causing violence against other people, they got a right to have their license took away, if I understand it correctly.
Well, you are correct. If they are literally calling for violence, then absolutely they would. I mean, if CNN got up there and called for riots, then we would certainly have a right to expect they would lose their license. But yeah,
they're so close to doing it, and I wish they would because them people need to be brought down. I mean, whoever's funding them, all this, they need to be looked into.
All right, Robert, appreciate you, man. I got to run to a break. I will tell you, by the way, the President of the United States has issued a statement calling for prayer for Charlie Kirk. And
President Trump has confirmed that, I can't believe I'm saying this, that Charlie Kirk is dead.
No.
President Trump just put up a statement on Truth Social that Charlie Kirk has unfortunately passed away.
Oh, and we will take a break right now. No, you know what? Hang on to the break. Are we already there? We already heading out? All right.
We can stop it.
Let's just hold that for a second. I don't want to run to a break having that. So you're saying the President of the United States is now announcing that Charlie Kirk has passed away.
This is from President Trump. The great and even legendary Charlie Kirk is dead. No one understood or had the heart of the youth in the United States of America better than Charlie. He was loved and admired by all, especially me, and now he is no longer with us. Melania and my sympathies go out to his beautiful wife, Erica, and family. Charlie, we love you.
Well, that's a game changer. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's about to be a catalyst There's about to be statues built in his honor, whether figuratively or not. But that's about to be a catalyst, because there are going to be people everywhere right now who have had enough of the idea that conservatives and Christians are not allowed to speak without fear of violence. And I'm going to tell you, listen, they made statues and plazas and everything else about George Floyd, and they burned down whole city blocks for a criminal who was a drug addict who was resisting arrest. And we just had a guy who was sitting there calmly talking about his conservative Christian beliefs and was shot for it. And I suspect that what you're going to wind up seeing is the left is about to be on its heels, because I just awakened a sleeping dragon. Now we're taking a break. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Right. And there's just no op tempo that's more demanding than that I know of.
That's every one of the airframes.
Yes.
Chinooks, Blackhawks.
Yeah, the Chinooks were the stars of Afghanistan, actually, because of the elevation, which was a real struggle for the Little Birds and even the Blackhawks. But Iraq was pretty much more a Blackhawk Little Bird show.
Yeah.
With certainly a lot of Chinook missions as well. But yeah, all the platforms.
Yeah, I was in my tour in Afghanistan was the beginning of the war, riding horses and stuff. But we were in the northern parts, north of the Hindu Kush, and so both Bagram and Kandahar down south couldn't get to us by rotary wing, because getting over the top of the Hindu Kush was too much for most of the airframes they flew.
Yep.
And the only couple of times something happened where somebody came in from the south, I think they were flying Chinooks.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beast. I mean, it really is. There's some.
It's a freaking school bus with rotors on top.
Yeah, we call it a dump truck, but I love it. Yeah, it's a great aircraft.
But I've seen images of, I mean, some of those guys that fly in the Chinooks. It's amazing. They can balance on a dime. But they literally, one guy was with the ramp down in the back was hovering in the air, exiting troops onto a mud hut on the edge of a cliff.
Yeah, there's a famous picture from Afghanistan. That's probably it.
Yeah.
The front wheels are off in space, with hundreds of feet below. Yeah.
So you had some major deployments. Operation Prime Chance, which a lot of folks don't realize, is defending tankers that were flagged American and making sure they're safe.
Our friends, the Iranians, who
they're in the news again.
They've, I don't even know what to say about them. It's just. They've been a constant problem for 50 years.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because the Israelis are just to the point where they had to do something, and they did.
Yeah, and I think most of the world is glad they did, at the same time holding their breath that they did.
Right.
But Operation Just Cause, so you're back in Panama again, and you went in with the 160th on that too, right?
Right. We did. We were there for 8 hours. So when the F-117 dropped the first bomb ever at Rio Hato, I was down there underneath watching it. It was pretty amazing.
Flying over places you've been to in the past, right?
Yeah. Some of the subsequent missions, there's where I used to live, and we're putting SEAL Team 6 in on targets around the city, trying to find, because Noriega was still on the run at the time. That our mission was to capture him. That was it.
Yeah.
And we called it the hunt for Elvis, because there was always an Elvis sighting somewhere, and usually it was bogus, but if it met the intel criteria, we'd go. And so we were flying all over the place.
And then Desert Storm also, also with 160th. Obviously, all your deployments there with 160th. But what was the mission in Desert Storm? Was it scud hunting or what?
It was, yeah. So the scuds, for those who don't recall, the concern was Saddam was launching scuds into Israel,
right,
which potentially would draw Israel into the fight, which would break up our coalition, because our coalition had Arab countries along with Western countries as part of a unified force. But if the Israelis got involved, the concern was that would fall apart. So it was a huge issue to stop Saddam Hussein from firing scuds into Israel. So we were putting Delta Force on the ground in Western Iraq to try to find these launchers. And then we actually found some ourselves, and I was fortunate enough to put the first rounds on one.
Did you really?
I did, yeah.
With an armed Blackhawk?
With an armed Blackhawk.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Take it out?
So in the end, they think it was a decoy. But There's a photo of it in this. I don't know if you've ever seen these books. Like there's an Army one, a Navy one, Air Force. There's a SOCOM book. They're big format, like coffee table books. Yeah. In that book for SOCOM, there's a picture of my FLIR. If you look at that picture, I don't care who you are, you're not going to think that's a decoy. I mean, so FLIR is forward-looking infrared. For those who don't know what that acronym is, it's heat sensitive. Basically, you can see heat on the wheels. I mean, it looks real. I mean, this thing absolutely looks real. And then you can see the minigun rounds sort of hitting on the way up into but it didn't blow up. And we had a Scud expert back at the operations center when we got back, and he said, "You're really lucky it didn't blow up, because if it blows up, it's like the space shuttle going off, because there's so much propellant in there." Oh, wow. And we were pretty close. We were probably within 200 meters when we broke.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Break meaning you're diving, you're shooting, and then you break. And he said if you would have blown it up, it probably would have taken you out. So, okay,
glad to take that all day long. Yeah. you still get credit though, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
And then there's Operation Gothic Serpent, which is heading into Somalia.
Find words, to be honest. As somebody who makes a living with words, it is hard to find words in terms of where we are right now. I'm looking up on the screen right now in the studio on Fox. They're interviewing a young Alabamian, a guy named Brylan Hollyhand, who is, I want to say Brylan is 20 years old.
He just got to college.
So he's like 18.
18.
But Brylan Hollyhand is a conservative, and I believe he may have been a member of TPUSA, and his. But there's a young Alabama kid right now who is speaking about the impact that Charlie Kirk had on his life. And I am, of course, speaking in past tense now because we have just learned the sad news right before the break. It is being announced that Charlie Kirk has indeed passed away. So, like I said a moment ago, as someone who makes a living using words and wordsmithing, and typically not being at a loss for words, it is tough right now to find words. Some of y'all may be looking around this situation and thinking, why is this even allowed to happen? How can this sort of thing occur? And I will not try to portray myself as having all the answers of why things happen the way they do. I do know this: God is good, and He's good all the time. And I cannot explain why sometimes things happen the way they do, but I do know this: He is still on His throne. And when I say that every day, it's not just a byline for the show. It's real. It is real. And I take comfort in that. And I have had amazing moments in my life of loss, and I've had amazing moments of danger, and I've had amazing moments of tragedy. And I have watched good people go down and wondered why them. But I will also tell you that I have never lost sight of the fact that our God is a big God, and that there is nothing that escapes His attention. And that while this may be a season of the world before Jesus comes back in which things will happen the way they do sometimes, it does not mean that He is not still God of all creation. That being said, what do we do next? Well, I would say this. First of all, brace yourselves. And when I say that, I don't mean it lightly. I mean brace yourselves, because we can be sad for a moment, but we need to be active tomorrow. And listen, we're not the left, all right? We're not going to be the pink-haired wackos. We're not going to be the people who are out there burning down city blocks. We're not going to be the people calling for violence. That's not. If you have that in your lexicon, go ahead and remove it, because we will not stoop to their level. We won't. There will not be an eye for an eye here. There will not. But there can be a word for a word. You can absolutely have every opportunity. I'm saying go find your car. Listen, Moms for Liberty. We had Emily Jones on a minute ago. Go get active, people. I have said it since the day this show went on the air over 4.5 years ago. I have said it constantly. This world's going to be a better place if you will get off your couch and do. And I mean do. Just do. And what I'm saying is there's going to be a gift or a talent or a skill or something that you have. Some of it may be resources. Some of y'all may have resources to put into something that you think can make a difference. You may decide that there's a time now for you to actually stop thinking about it and start doing it. Maybe you want to get involved in TPUSA. Maybe you want to give a donation in Charlie Kirk's honor. Maybe you want to get involved in Moms for Liberty. Maybe you want to find something like the Alabama Policy Institute or something at the national level, like the Heritage Foundation, and you want to be out there fighting for conservative policy. Maybe it's time for you to find what your church does and get your church going. And maybe your church is not going enough, and you're the catalyst within the pews who's going to say, hello, Saturday morning, we're doing this, and I expect some people to join me. I'm just saying, this cannot be the thing that causes us to sit still. It would be well, first of all, it was already a waste that this happened. But what a waste it would be if we let his memory be the thing that caused us to sit down as opposed to stand up. So that being said, I'm telling you right now that what we have before us is a time to brace yourselves first. Gird yourself. When I say brace yourselves, I don't mean like brace yourselves like, hunker down in the foxhole. I'm talking about gird yourself. Gird yourself up. Get ready, because y'all, I'm telling you, the left has just bit off more than they can chew. By God, they earn everything they get out of it. And I am not talking about violence, but I am saying do not be still. Do not be inactive. Do not be quiet. Do not go into the night without a fight. All right. We're going to make sure that this does not become the end of the conversation. Absolutely. Charlie Kirk was the master, by the way, of knowing his position. Yes, he had a gift for conveyance. He could provide insight that no one else could put their hands on sometimes. Part of that is because he was a student of what he believed. So we'll talk about that later too. In the meantime, we're going to wind up going to Grand Council because it's already scheduled. We'll have Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and myself on here momentarily, and I'm sure we'll be hashing out this same thing. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Battle of Mogadishu. A lot of your book, of course, and rightfully so, is focused on that mission. I want to dive into that for a bit because that's the one. I mean, your situation in the Battle of Mogadishu took you out of running in obscurity in terms of your personal name and thrust you into the eyes of the entire world. And I remember that. I remember when that happened. It was amazing to see it. But for those who don't recall, Operation Gothic Serpent, the intro into Mogadishu for the United States actually started under George H.W. Bush.
Correct.
But it transitioned in early '93 when Clinton took office.
Correct.
So you were there during Clinton's era, correct?
Yes.
All right. So Clinton took office in January '93. Task Force Ranger is the name of the U.S. presence, I guess, at the airfield there. And then in October, was it October 3rd, I think? October 3rd, '93, launched what many people just refer to as Black Hawk Down because that's the book and the movie. And I guess code word Irene was what launched the mission, right?
It was.
Which my secretary downstairs at the law firm, her name is Irene. I told
really?
her one day, I said, I don't know if you're aware of the use of your name in modern pop culture. And she went, I've never heard that. So anyway.
And actually, that's my character that says it in the movie.
That is your character. Yeah. And I want to talk about the movie and all that too at some point, just to get your thoughts on it. But Rangers have the mission of going in and securing some high-value targets, or securing the scene so that Delta can secure the high-value targets. You're part of the flight in. Who were you bringing in, by the way?
So I was the flight lead, which means I'm responsible for my whole flight of aircraft of the Ranger blocking force. So it's basically split into two pieces. We had the assault force, which is where the Delta guys are. They're primarily on little birds. Yeah. And they're going to go in first because they want the element of surprise. They want to be, busting doors down before, with limited amount of time to react, right? If you put the blocking force in first, then you bring the assault force in, the bad guys have a little bit more time to react. So they're going in first. We're right behind them. So as soon as their birds pull out, we're moving in, and I had 4 Blackhawks that made up the blocking force, plus 2 spare attack little birds, plus the search and rescue bird. So we're all coming in together on the second wave, basically. And we just set up a box. I mean, all they want is put a Ranger platoon on each corner, and the purpose is twofold. One, keep more bad guys from getting in, and then obviously we call them leakers, keeping the people you're after from getting out. And that all went pretty smoothly, even though we'd done it 6 times before. This was the 7th mission.
Right.
And, we had tremendous success. We had captured I think 27 people on a list of 50, taking no casualties of any significance. It didn't lose any birds. I mean, it was all going pretty well. There were 3-day missions and 3-night missions leading up to that. And this 7th mission is a day mission, which created some risk factors that we knew about, but not my call.
Part of the job.
But yeah, the commander makes the call.
Right.
They're within tolerance, I guess you could say, and when we go. And then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, it got crazy on the ground pretty quick, didn't it?
It did.
I know we had one ranger injured on the fast rope end, and that created a scene. And then I guess the all call went out, and it seemed like everybody in Mogadishu had an AK-47, and they all ran to the scene.
And that was their strategy, which we found out later. They actually had set up a system where once they knew where we were hitting the target, and again, they learned this over time, right? When I talk about this, I try to compare it to sports, right? If you keep running the same play, the defense is going to adapt to that play, right? They understand, okay, this formation means this is what they're going to do, so here's how we counter that. It works the same way in the military. And so having done it 6 times, they obviously understood, okay, the helicopters will go to a target. That's where, they're going to put people on the ground. They're going to try to apprehend folks. If we can pin them in there, then, we might have some chance of
Plus, they were blocking roads, so the ground convoy was having trouble.
Yep. So we found out after that was their strategy. Once they knew where the target was, they were all going to close on it, and it worked pretty well, actually.
Well, the Blackhawks stayed on station. In fact, one thing I've never known is what was the purpose of y'all? If there's going to be a ground convoy for the exfil, what was the purpose of y'all remaining on station like you did?
So we kept 2 attack little birds and 2 Blackhawks over the target for fire support. So the little birds, they've got miniguns and rockets,
right?
And they're going to be slightly further out in terms of their restricted fire areas. Where the Blackhawks were being used, and honestly, hindsight being 2020, it wasn't a great way to do this, and it's not being done anymore, at least not in urban environments. They were being used for both the miniguns, which I don't think they used the miniguns a lot, but they had snipers on board. So it's a great stable platform for the shooter, but it's a 50-something foot long target for people on the ground that have weapons. Mm-hmm. And you can't fly fast, because if you're flying fast, your shooter can't hit anything. So the speed is less than what you would fly if you were, just trying to avoid fire. We're probably flying 50 knots, right? Which may seem fast to someone on the ground, but that's really slow for an aircraft. Mm-hmm. And it makes the aircraft much more vulnerable to ground fire.
And how far above ground were you?
Very low. I mean, the Blackhawks had to stay 150 feet and below. Okay. And the little birds, I think, were 300 feet and above, which worked out great. I mean, we'd done it, at that point, probably 50 times counting rehearsals, and never had any close calls in terms of mid-airs.
Were you just flying racetracks?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had, when I was in Baghdad in 2004, I can remember being on a cordon and search mission in Sadr City area, and they had changed all the TTPs because the racetracks got predictable, apparently, for ground fire, and so they were flying figure 8s, and they were also altitude changes, and they had gone through all kinds of machinations to try and make sure the bad guys on the ground didn't have a predictable means of assessing, where the flight was going to be.
Right. Now, my flight, because I'm not one of these 4 aircraft over the target. I've already gone in, and I put my guys on the ground. But I took my flight north of the city for exactly what you're talking about. And one of the guys criticized me. He said, hey, we need to stay closer to the target so we can see what's going on. And I'm like, no, we're a contingency force at this point. I'm going north of the city where there's no threat, because if we're just doing circles up there, why would I want to be right here in the middle of this fight and put our
conservative and just plain right? Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a hump day. And it's a very somber, literally right before the break, we found out that Charlie Kirk had indeed passed away. But I believe that there's a sense of normalcy that also needs to be maintained, because that's something that also you can sort of count on. So we're going to go ahead and move right straight into the Grand Council. As always, I'm sure it'll be a topic of conversation, but let me just check the roll. So, yeah, from up yonder north in the Huntsville region, from 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN, Cumulus Broadcasting, host of the Dale Jackson Show, also works with Yellowhammer and has a TV gig. Dale Jackson, are you there? Is he there? Do we have Dale Jackson?
He was there.
Dale-
I'm here.
Okay. All right. Dale's back. And then, oh, by the way, looking down southward to the Gulf of America, that would be from FM Talk 106.5, host of the Jeff Poor Show, editor-in-chief at 1819 News. Oh, by the way, has a long time of history in the media. Hey, Jeff Poor, are you there?
I am present.
You are indeed. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I pronounce the quorum.
Assemble the Grand Council.
Well, the Grand Council is assembled. Fellers, I mean, there's really only one real topic out there right now. I'm sure you guys are both tracking, being the news hounds that you are, that Charlie Kirk, TPUSA, was shot, and we'd learned just like in the last 20 minutes, is now dead. So I'm going to go ahead and just start by asking, give me your unvarnished thoughts. Jeff, you first, man.
I mean, I actually watched it. I you know, there was no way I thought he could have survived that shot. And I'm really curious to see what the reaction will be. I mean, it's hard to tell kind of immediately out of the gate if this will cause a stir. But people are getting kind of tired of being pushed around, especially conservatives, when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Totally 100%. And Jeff, I think your video froze up there for a second. You said stuff, and was there something else after that?
No, that's all.
Dale, jump on in, brother. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, like you said, we've all watched a bunch of different things, and I can tell you this: I've seen enough people already suggesting that the ICE raids are distracting the FBI. Otherwise, this extremism would have been stopped because it's clearly right-wing extremism. I guess, upset Charlie Kirk didn't go far enough. I don't know. I've heard a lot of people saying Charlie Kirk angered a lot of people and targeted them. And in this instance, maybe he was targeted because of that, like as if there was a justification. I've heard people talk about how it's potentially a school shooting in this situation. Charlie Kirk wasn't the target at all. I've seen people in North Alabama alone put out messages that Charlie Kirk is getting exactly what he deserved. I mean, people are going to be pissed about this. This has the same vibe, not to the same level, but the same vibe as the Donald Trump assassination in Butler.
Yeah. Yep.
Only there's an actual death here.
I think so. I said that earlier too. I think that's absolutely it's on par with that, and I say that because whereas Donald Trump may have been the leader of the movement to sort of take back America, I will say this: I think one of the key voices in moving the younger generation to the polls to vote for Donald Trump was Charlie Kirk. I think there's no way of knowing for a fact the level of impact he had, but to Jeff's point earlier, this had better be a catalyst moment. This had better be, and I'm not talking about violence. I said it on my show earlier. I'm not talking about violence. We're not going to stoop to their level. We're not going to go pink hair crazy and burn down city blocks. But there better not be people who cower down. This is the wrong time to cower down. To Jeff's words, conservatives are getting sick of being pushed around.
That and like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Will we finally acknowledge that it's not just right wingers with guns, that there's a real left wing problem in this country? We're not allowed to talk about that, but maybe it's time.
Fair. I mean, left wingers who are prone to violence, and they will use whatever tool they have at their disposal. But I mean, I don't think it's the gun that did it. I think it's the dogma. I think it's the ideology. I think it's the sickness of the inability to accept that someone else might have a differing opinion. That's the.
Well, let's also on Jeff's point. Let's be honest on this. What's the equivalent of this? The right's supposedly so violent, so terrible, and all these other things. What is the most recent left wing equivalent of this, where a person on the right killed somebody solely for their political opinion? Wait, what is this? The closest thing I can think of is the Pennsylvania thing. And that one seems so up in the air that you can't even, I think, pin that on the right. What is it?
I don't have one. I mean, is there one? And by the way, I take it a step further. Is there one of taking out a notable figure of the opposite side? I mean, there may be a murder, there may be a criminal act, but in terms of assassinating or attempting to
I'll
assassinate
take
someone on a
either. Give
position,
me either, Phil. You know, which
Well, then
one?
they would just say
I
January
and I think
6th.
that's what you're
That-
saying. I think that's what you're saying, but I just can't leave either.
yeah, but
I know this isn't what you're asking, Dale, but they would just say January 6th was the Rights Act of violence.
Right,
okay.
and I would tell them to go to hell because that's not even close to the same thing. It's not even close. I know you're not making that argument. That's what they're going to say. I'm talking about, and the reason why I asked the question is I'm talking about the sane example of that, not the insane example of January 6th, whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the walk up and blow someone's brains out or kill them because you disagree with their politics. Because that's
They
what
might
happened
even
here.
say Gabby
I can't even
Gifford
think of one.
or somebody like that, but there's no ideological basis for that either.
Gabby Gifford. That was I don't even know that.
No,
we
that
could-
guy was crazy. He was just a lunatic. That wasn't political at all. Yeah, and I know you guys are just offering up these examples. I can't think of any either. But it's wild because you're going to get a lot of, well, since the day after 9/11, domestic terrorism is more tied to the right or some nonsense.
That's crap.
Like that. I told garbage.
And that's total garbage. That's the crap that the left spews constantly. That's the Biden administration went on the witch hunt for white Christian nationalists as being one of the threats to our ideological positions in the world and the existential threat to America. Between that and climate change, there was nothing else more important, and yet they couldn't find it, and because it didn't exist to the levels they said it did. Are you always going to have people of one extreme or another? Certainly. But what we're watching right now is the vast majority of the violence we're seeing perpetrated against ideological positions comes out of the left. Period.
Yeah. There is no movement on the right or person on the right that you can point to. They get all upset when you focus on the trans shooters, but they're the ones that are carrying out the actual political violence. If the guy goes into a school and shoots the place up because he's insane or because he's angry at people, that's not because of political violence. If he goes there and does it because if you won't let our kids live, we won't let your kids live, that's political terrorism. And that's what that is. And I'm asking, I know there's people in this audience right now who are yelling names at their radios. Let us know.
Yeah, I'd be honest with you, all three of us do this for a living, and I think we're semi-stumped for finding an answer to that question. The next piece of this, though, is the what now, and it's a little soon. I mean, the what now doesn't have to come on the immediate aftermath, but the what now is going to be a big deal. And I'll tell you, and we only got a couple of minutes here for the break, but the what now is going to be important. And do you anticipate that we will see what I would call a tamping down of the rhetoric from the left? Is Maxine Waters going to be allowed to continue to incite people? Are we going to continue to see Chuck Schumer rail about Supreme Court justices and get away with it? What do you think, Jeff?
They'll go easy for a day or two, and then they'll go back to what they always do. It's how it was after the attempt on Trump. Remember? So no, I fully anticipate this will be a blip in the radar.
Just long enough for the funeral to be over with, huh? Dale?
If Abby Phillip does not come back on her program tonight and say, you know what we were saying yesterday where Charlie Kirk was the boogeyman in the train stabbing in North Carolina, and everyone agreed and went and said all sorts of awful. I played clips on my show this morning. You would think Charlie Kirk was the stabber based on the way they covered this thing.
Yeah.
And all he did was lay out pattern recognition and say we've got ourselves a bit of a problem because we absolutely do have a crime problem, an urban crime problem, a black crime problem. He said all those things, and they were acting like he was the problem here.
Yeah.
And for pointing it out, they said he's using these words. And I'm telling you, today they're going to come out and they're going to make the argument that Charlie Kirk's incendiary rhetoric got himself killed. They're going to blame him. That's what they're going to do.
Well, they'll try, but I think that the vast majority of the world knows otherwise. And then the other piece of this too is Abby Phillip just a little while ago on social media came out and said she was distressed at the level to which the X algorithm was allowing the video of his shooting to be, seen. And I thought, my God, that's all you got? I don't hear anything.
People have no idea. They have no idea how to cover stories like this because they always have to figure a way to make it about themselves. Oh, I'm seeing this video. It's too hard. Oh, Charlie Kirk saying the wrong words.
Yep.
in response to the thing. Oh, the problem is how the right's pissed off about some girl getting stabbed on a train in the back. And well, the guy walks away and says, "Got that white girl," or whatever he said. And we're supposed to be like, well, that's the real problem. And I used this example before. People say this all the time. Oh, Michael Jackson and all the issues he has. The worst thing about it is I can't listen to the music anymore. I'm like, no, the worst thing about it is they raped some kids. That's the real problem. And now we completely lost the plot here, completely.
Speaking of completely, we got to completely go to a break. So you guys stand by. We'll take it back to a break. We're with the Grand Council, Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, and me, processing the moment, y'all. Just processing the moment. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Entire flight at risk, and it was obviously the right decision to do what I decided to do. So I've got my flight, and I'm north of the city. Now, north of the city is not a long distance; it's probably a mile.
Right.
And we're up there orbiting, basically on standby. I mean, when you got assets like that, if you could keep them on hand as a ground force, yeah, keep them on hand, right? Because you never know when you might need some kind of helo support. And then I get called back in when the first Black Hawk gets shot down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So you were flying what, Super 6-4?
Right.
And Super 6-1, your friend Donovan, right?
Right.
So he's the first one to go down.
And Cliff Walcott.
Yeah, and Cliff Walcott. And then you were, I think you were directed in to replace him.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, we didn't have a sniper on board. So we're going in simply to use our minigun down close to try to provide fire support for the guys on the ground. That's what our mission has now become, which that was not our mission prior to that. But again, you adapt and you do what needs to be done to try to help the force that you're supporting.
And you've got a full crew?
4, yeah. 2 crew chiefs and 2 pilots.
All right, so Super 6-1 is down. What do you remember about Super 6-1, hearing it over the air, and recognizing that one of them's already down?
Yeah, I mean, I've always called myself an eternal optimist. It never in my wildest dreams would I have thought that Cliff and Donovan would be dead. I just assumed that, they took a round, they're going down, they're going to land the aircraft somewhere, we'll get them recovered, and we'll all go debrief this thing when this is over. But obviously now we've lost a bird, which is the first time that this happens for us. There had been another Black Hawk shot down by 10th Mountain Division previously with some fatalities, but it wasn't our unit. And it, I've always used the phrase big sky, little bullet. You don't think it can necessarily happen to you until there's enough volume of fire where it's going to happen to you. And there's also a search and rescue bird shot down in the middle of all this that then heightens that even more, because now they've shot down 2 aircraft in about 5 minutes, and we're going into this fray. This is getting real, really fast. And, I remember telling the crew chiefs, because I've got control of their guns from up front. So I've got an arming switch. And I armed the guns, and I said, okay, you're armed, but we got friendlies all over the ground down here. So we can't go in here just blasting away. When we see bad guys, we got to get situationally aware so we know where all of our forces are before you start launching 6,000 rounds a minute downrange.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in an urban environment, I don't want to say it's impossible, but right on the rooftops, it's really difficult to sort all that out. Because first of all, they're all taking cover. So, they're not standing out there waving at you. They're all taking cover. So trying to figure out where everybody was would have probably taken us a while. In the end, we only made it around 3 times when we got nailed by an RPG.
So RPG to the tail rotor, right?
Right.
In the movie, and later I want to get your thoughts on the movie, like I said, but in the movie, there's a scene where you took the RPG to the tail rotor, but initially you thought it was going to be okay until you started getting some play in the pedals and stuff like that. So what were your first thoughts, and how did that I mean?
Well, I knew we were hit, and I always tell people, if you want to know what it feels like, drive too fast in a parking lot and hit a speed bump. That's what it felt like. It felt like a jolt to the airframe, because you don't see it. Usually what they were doing is they let us fly by, and then they emerge from the doorway and shoot. So you're probably not going to see the launch. The crew chief might see it, depending if they're looking in the right direction. And then the reason they hit both of us in the tail is they're not leading us enough. So that 50-knot magical speed was just ballistically perfect for them to shoot at the. I'm sure they're aiming for the center mass.
Which the crazy thing is, an RPG is not usually designed to take out aircraft.
No,
I mean,
but if you fire enough of them, eventually they say they fired 150 at us on that mission. Now, not just at me, but
no kidding.
on that mission. That's how many RPGs.
I never heard
fired.
that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, they went all in. They thought we want to bring down a helicopter, and they were successful. So anyway, back to your question. Initially, I feel like I hit a speed bump. Knew we were hit. I can see the airfield. It's 2 miles ahead of us, and looking in the cockpit, everything's okay. Controls were all responding. But what had happened was the gearbox had been blown apart, and it's like a transmission in your car, right? If you blow your transmission apart,
you ain't going anywhere.
Not for very long. Once
gonna
those
coast in at
gears,
that point, yeah.
once those gears, run without oil for any period of time, they're going to self-destruct, and that's what happened. And then when the tail rotor left the aircraft, again, that's impossible to describe.
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, listen, I'm going back to the Grand Council with my brethren in talk radio, Dale Jackson and Jeff Poor. Hey, fellas, here's what I want to take. I want to stay on the topic, but I want to just go ahead and dive into a different angle of it. So we kind of talked a moment ago about what's going to happen in the aftermath. What does it mean to people? Is there going to be? Here's my question: what is the official response? So we've seen a lot in the news lately about the young Ukrainian woman, Irina, I forgot her name, Zarutska. Yeah, Irina Zarutska, who was murdered. We've seen the Minnesota shooting. We got Trump, sending folks to Chicago, and of course the Washington, D.C. cleanup, and then the riots in L.A. My question to you is, does this Charlie Kirk moment create an official catalyst of some kind? Jeff, you first.
Yeah, I mean, you may see a more aggressive posture from the DOJ on this stuff. They already were kind of hinting at that with Charlotte, but people will demand it. I think that they'll expect some kind of reaction to out of control lefties and some of the crazy things they say.
I think so, absolutely. Dale, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. You'll see it, but this is a country where free speech is important, and it's hard for us to do anything about stuff like this because sitting on a cable news desk and calling someone a Nazi is completely acceptable rhetoric. And what I mean by that is it's legal, not necessarily nice. What needs to happen and what will not happen is the people who run around. I mean, today alone, I went and looked out of my 2 radio shows I do. I was called a Nazi on the text line 6 times.
Huh.
So I mean, that's just par for the course on this kind of stuff. And I think it is absolutely unacceptable, but we live in a free society and people are allowed to talk this way. The only way it stops is when people who hear this kind of stuff go, hey, you shouldn't be doing that kind of stuff. It has to be people on their own side. It has to be the AOCs, the Maxwell Frost, the Abby Phillip or whoever, who say, come on, what are you talking about? Charlie Kirk did not cause the stabbing on a train. Him laying out how it happened did not make it worse. It's not the right who's mad about it. But the media will do exactly what they did with this stabbing of this young lady on the train.
Jeff.
They're going to say the killing of Kirk set off a firestorm on the right about vengeance or some nonsense like that. That's how they're going to frame it.
Jeff,
let me address this though. That clearly the left is inflaming sensibilities about the right. That's part of their political success. They get people worked up. That gets out the vote. What has to happen to backlash in the marketplace, I think, where this isn't rewarded. So it's not as if the government says you can't do this anymore. It's more about you got to take out the incentive for the left and Democratic Party, those types to really try to incite this kind of behavior.
Yeah, and I'll tell you where I see another official response is going to wind up being state legislatures. I guarantee you there's going to be somebody somewhere, multiple states probably, there's going to be some legislation, and I don't know how they'll couch it. Some of them will get carried away, and they'll say, the Office of Misinformation for the state of Alabama has to be created. We can't do that. But I will also bet that there's going to wind up being some that will say, enough. And we're not going to continue to say, that these situations with no mandatory minimum sentencing and cashless bail, all this stuff's got to quit. And I bet you're going to start seeing a little bit of a catalyst in some of the at least purple states making some changes and tweaks to their criminal law. Dale, what are you about to say?
Well, I think JP might know this a little better than any of us three, but I've delved in a little bit to online streaming, watching it, stuff like this. It's a wild, wild west.
Oh, it is.
All the slanderous stuff they say about what talk radio is, this is that and 1,000 times worse. You have people giving out addresses saying that individuals who had worked for the IDF should be killed now. That was what Hassan said. Hassan Piker has been made into a big star by CNN and Twitch and all these other places, and they treat him like he's a legitimate figure. And you have these voices that are unchecked completely. Like with us, me, particular to Jeff, you know, we are on radio stations that are federally licensed. If we do some of the stuff that we see on there, they'd yank us no matter what our circumstances. And they would yank us and say enough of that. That's not happening on these platforms. And, you know, there's the wild, wild west of free speech and stuff like this. But with that comes all these incitements of violence and all this other stuff. And I think that's where you're finding that these radicalized, like, trans activists, you know, all this, there's a trans genocide, all this. On the right, I'm sorry to take up so much time. You used to get a little bit of you're a baby killer and stuff like that. I don't know what the similar rhetoric is on the right now. It's usually this person sucks, and they're like, hey, you can't criticize a member of the media. The First Amendment, you're bringing violence upon them. But when they actually do violence and advocate violence, they don't say a damn thing about that. I'm sorry I ranted.
Well, no, that's a good rant. And listen, we're literally about the music's about to play, so I appreciate you guys more than you could possibly know. I will say this though, I appreciate and respect both of you, and let's not forget that sometimes these things can be localized too. So y'all watch your backs and keep your heads on a swivel, keep your powder dry, right?
Yeah, my mom's called me already.
All right. Well, that's fair. Tell mom I said hey, by the way. All right, fellas, that's Jeff Poor, Dale Jackson, Grand Counsel, every Wednesday. We had a topic today that was going to run the gamut, and we knew it would, but I knew I wanted their opinions and their thoughts and their concerns in the whole thing. And they both do a good job at what they do on opposite ends of the state. In the meantime, we're taking a break right now. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
If you haven't experienced it, I can't describe it. I mean, it's just violent spin of the aircraft, out of control.
What do they call that? Counter rotation or something, where you're trying to restore stability?
Well, the tail rotor is there to counter the torque of the main rotor system. Again, if you think about a drill, people are familiar with that. You pull the trigger, you can feel it want to turn. That's torque. So the same thing's happening to a helicopter, obviously with a lot more force. The tail rotor is mounted horizontally to push against that force that's wanting the airframe to spin. Once that tail rotor is gone, there's nothing. So essentially, if you were left unaffected by anything else, what would eventually happen is the airframe, minus wind drag, obviously, would be spinning as fast as the rotor blades are in the opposite direction. Yeah. That's essentially once it reached equilibrium. That will never happen, but that's how much force you're talking about here. And I remember looking at my feet, trying to convince myself you're doing the right thing in terms of which pedal you're pushing, but it is having no effect on the aircraft. And then I'm like, okay, we lost the tail rotor. You know, again, this is something you can't train that. There's no, you can't do it in the simulator. I mean, we can do a loss of tail rotor in a simulator, but you can't do the violent effects, the physical violent effects of the airframe in a simulator. But I knew what had happened, and the only thing you can do is shut the engines off, because again, that's what's creating that torque. So if you can remove that force, it'll stop that spin, but now you have no engines. Yeah. So that's not good either, especially at low altitude. But it's what you have to do. You can't possibly maintain control of the aircraft if it's just spinning out of control. So in a Black Hawk, we don't have control of the engines on the flight controls. So the co-pilot or the non-flying pilot has to shut the engines off. So I looked over at Ray and I said, we lost the tail. We better pull him off. And he knew he was an experienced guy. I actually had more experience than I did, and pulled the engines off. But we're spinning so fast that he said, and we talked about it on the ground afterwards, typical instructor pilots. He said, we're spinning so fast, the centrifugal force was causing him to not be able to lift his arms up over his head, which is where the engine power control levers are. So he got one to idle and got one about halfway off, which slowed the spin but didn't stop it. And now, with no engine power, we're falling out of the sky like a Coke machine. And all I could do is try to keep the aircraft from flipping upside down, which, again, I don't know if anything I did made a difference, honestly, but all I can tell you is we crashed right on the wheels. And that's the only reason I'm still here.
All right, so you're on impact. Now, you said something on the ground. Did Ray make it?
Yeah,
okay.
we all survived the crash.
Okay.
The crew chiefs were hurt really bad because they don't, first of all, they don't have as good as seats, at least in that version of the aircraft. It's been improved since. And they're probably not strapped in, meaning, you know, they operate on what we call monkey harnesses back there.
Yeah.
So they're on a strap, but they're not strapped into their seats, which have, you know,
Yeah.
all of the crash survivability.
I use those
built
as a
in.
jump master in
Yeah,
Blackhawks.
because it allows you to move around
Yeah.
and do the things you need to do. And, you know, you get in the seat when you have to land. Well, they didn't, obviously we're not planning to land, so they're probably not strapped in, or at least not likely that they're both strapped in. So, you know, that violent crash, they were probably not going to make it. But Ray, I mean, he was not hurt as bad as I was. And we're talking, once I regained consciousness, we're talking about what happened, and there was no reason to talk about what happened. We should have been talking about, hey, the heck, we're going to survive the next 5 minutes here. But we did, you know, and that's when he explained what he had tried to do. And then he was able to get himself out of the cockpit. There's no way I could get out. I had a femur fracture, crushed vertebrae in my spine. It's hard to get out of a Black Hawk cockpit when you're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
With those injuries, there's no way. So I just thought, I'm just going to fight it out from the cockpit.
I did not recall that your co-pilot had made it, but they didn't survive. Am I correct?
Well, they were killed in a firefight.
Yeah, they're all killed in the firefight. Yeah, I remember that now. All right, you're still stuck in the cockpit. I remember. I'm assuming it was when I read it that you had a kind of an off the books weapon. Didn't you have an MP5 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Was that standard issue?
Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just covering down on some major ground across the southeast US of A, where all y'all are. I mean, radio, podcasting, all of it. You guys out there, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, whether you pick this show up on our vast radio footprint across the southeast, or whether you are picking this up through our live stream right now on places like X and YouTube and Rumble and our website, rightsidemedia.org, or whether you are a podcaster who catches it after the fact, hear my voice when I say it. You are greatly appreciated. You're the only reason why this show even exists. I mean, 4.5 years of doing this, it's been an absolute joy. And I will tell you too, there have been times when I've come on the air and had news hit. Literally, as I'm coming on the air, news hit. We had the news hit about the pullout from Afghanistan. I hadn't been on the air about a little over a month, and the debacle pullout from Afghanistan was happening, and of course the bombing at Abbey Gate while I was on the air, and that turned into a thing. And this audience just kind of hunkered down together. And then there's also the Trump shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. This audience spent a great deal of time talking about things on the air about how we felt about it and what was going to happen. And then, of course, there's, the election. What an amazing thing. We've had highs and we've had lows. And today we've had an absolute low in terms of the news. But I will just tell you that we cannot know for certain what the day will bring. All we can do is control how we react to it. And so what is going to happen next is going to be just as important as anything that occurred before, maybe more so. I mean, I've got articles here on my desk I was going to get into. They're the kind of things that really tap right into exactly what we're talking about. I had a piece here from Fox News that came out last week. You may have seen it. Tim Walz, who was, vying to be our vice president, one heartbeat away from the presidency if he had ever gotten there. Tim Walz last week thought it was kind of funny to get up there and talk about at a speech in Duluth, Minnesota, at a Labor Day picnic, getting the crowd to laugh about it. as he said that maybe there would be some news, and he was referring to whether Trump would be deceased or not. I mean, that's harmful, that's dangerous, that's insightful, that's prurient, that is absolutely galling. It's also tacky. It's also just the kind of grossness that you see too often on the left. And I realize that people on the right say things they're that way too. But we're not finding what I would call the public discourse that leads to the violence we're seeing right now on the right. And they tried to demonize us for the last 4 years. They tried to demonize us and tell us that Christian nationalists were the existential threats to our nation's, security. And they did witch hunts, and they shut down training across the military to root out extremism in the ranks. And they made soldiers do privilege walks. And then they had, transgenderism in schools. And then and you were hateful if you didn't. And they had politicians bowing at the feet of BLM rioters, literally bowing, like on their knees. But the reality is you're not seeing that on the right. And you won't, and you better not. But I will say this, how we respond to it is going to be huge. It's going to be absolutely 100% our mission in life to make sure that this is not a wasted moment. And by that, I'm not talking about the Rahm Emanuel thing about never let a good crisis go to waste. That's not what we're talking about. What we're saying is do not let this be in vain. That's what we're saying. One of my life verse, I call it, is Joshua 1:8-9. Joshua 1:8-9. I can do it from memory. This book of the law, meaning the Bible, this book of the law shall not depart from you. You shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may do the things that are written in it. For by this you will achieve prosperity and success. And have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be dismayed, for the Lord your God will go with you wherever you go. That's a huge promise. And so I guess one of the things that I would encourage you on is, those of you who are believers, jump in the word. Those of you who are not, recognize that we have something, and if you want it, you can have it too. But jump in the word. This book of the law shall not depart from you. You shall meditate on it day and night. Get on in there. Find solace. At the same time, you will also find mission, man. You will find mission, because it didn't stop right there. It didn't say hunker down in the word and just stay there and go into your cave and never come back out. It didn't say that. It said, have I not commanded you? That's a command. Be strong and courageous, and do not fear or be dismayed. For the Lord will go with you wherever you go. All that to say, my friends, this is a galvanizing moment. I'm pissed. I'll be honest with you. I just am. I am just like pissed at my core right now. I'm pissed. I'm also sad. It's been only a few times on the air in the last 4.5 years that I found myself feeling emotional enough to where I had to catch my breath before I said the next word. And that's happened like 3 times today. I am pissed off that this happened. I am sad that it happened. I'm incensed that it happened. And so if you're feeling all the same things, you should. If you're not feeling them, I wonder, why not? And then tomorrow we're going to get up, and by God, what I want you to do, here's your homework. Aside from getting in on the word, that's a thing. I think you should. Aside from that, I want to encourage you, find your place. If you haven't already, don't be the one who just sits around and listens to it and puts a little post on social media and calls it done. Figure out what your role is. And I mean that. What is your role? Some people's role is to be a supporter. Some people's role is to be an active member. Some people's role is to be a voice. God gives every single one of us talents and gifts. Don't let them go to waste. Figure out what your talent or your gift is, and then figure out that spot where you want to put it into place, and go ahead and do it for Charlie Kirk, if nothing else. JP, what do you think, buddy?
Still just trying to process it all, but I think the one thought that is just bringing some bit of comfort is knowing where Charlie Kirk is right now. Like he's in a much better spot. Good. And it's tremendously tragic. And now we've got 2 young kids, 3-year-old daughter, 1-year-old son, who now will have to grow up without a father. Erica Kirk, who will now have to go on, without her husband. And just for what? The crime that he had a different stance on abortion, on transgender rights, on gun rights, on immigration. Like, is that really worth taking somebody's life for? Yeah, like, good job, and that you've really done a lot for your cause, because he took the life of a father because he disagrees with you politically. But this, Dale was mentioning it. This is unprecedented in my opinion, from the sense of, we've seen JFK, we've seen, Trump survive an assassination attempt. We've seen, like Roosevelt survive an assassination attempt. We've seen this from actual people who hold political office, but this was a political commentator that what he had no office that he was holding. He was just simply debating people. He'll go and he'll debate leftist students more than he'll talk to conservative students when he goes on this campus. That's your chance to have a debate with somebody and have your opinions expressed. But instead of doing that, the shooter took the cowardly route of just simply killing him in cold blood. It's just completely unbelievable that just for the crime of talking about your beliefs that somebody can lose their life over. It's just, and Dale hit it on the head too, of people like Van Jones, who thinks it's cute to say that because Charlie Kirk mentioned the fact that the stabbing on the subway or the train was racially motivated. He wants to be, funny and cute and say that he's feeding some racial fear mongering and it's disgusting what he said. And like, is it going to ever click with these people that the stuff that they say actually has an impact on people? Although Van Jones himself is not going to go and kill Charlie Kirk, he may have said something that may inspire other people to. So it's just the rhetoric has got to get toned down so that you don't have to feel like you have to keep your head on a swivel for simply talking about politics. Yeah. Like it's gotten to that point that just because you're a conservative and you're expressing your beliefs that you have to watch out. You got a target on your back now. It's unbelievable.
And that's so well said, man. And here's a couple of things too as we get closer to the break. There's going to be a real tendency for people to go, listen, shh, don't say that out loud. Somebody might get mad. You saw what happened to Charlie Kirk. Don't do that. I will tell you this. I would rather live large. I'd rather live large and go down swinging.
Yes, exactly.
I've got lots of aches and pains in my body from a life fully lived. And the joke in my family is we call scars and broken points and all that kind of stuff. We call them symbols of an active lifestyle. So the truth be told, yeah, there's going to be people that hate you for saying it. There's going to be people that get mad at you for standing up. There's going to be people that don't understand why you would say the thing you said or the candidate you supported, but go ahead and do it openly and go down swinging if it came down to it. Although I got news. Very rare is the day that this happens. Most of the time, they're cowards, and they will just not know what to do with you.
And I'll say this too: thousands of more Charlie Kirks were made today, and the conservatives of this generation are ready to carry the torch forward that Charlie Kirk set. And like I said, it's horribly tragic that Charlie Kirk, will be a martyr in this situation. But if they thought that this is going to make people shut up, it's going to have the reverse effect. And Charlie Kirk, his legacy is going to be carried on by the conservatives of this generation.
I agree with that. And that is your generation, man. I'm the old guy. You're the young one. Roughly Ann from Huntsville checking in again. She says, I'm so humbled by the way Charlie spoke out for a lot of us, and we now need to speak out on Charlie's behalf. I think that's a fair place to take a break. If you would, tell our caller who called in, if he can hold on during the break, we'll get him right after this. In the meantime, we're taking the last break of the day. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, we used the MP5. They don't use it anymore, I don't think. But that was our we had an M9 pistol and an MP5.
So you wound up having to engage targets yourself while you're on the ground in the cockpit?
Actually, not from the cockpit. That's one area where Black Hawk Down deviates from what actually happened. I mean, I did consult a little bit on the movie, but really not much. I guess if they're going to exaggerate something and make you look better than you actually were, that's a good thing. But yeah, they have me, blasting away from the cockpit. It was amazing how quickly Gary Gordon and Randy Sugart got to the cockpit. There were no Somalis there yet. And that's why I hadn't fired any rounds. I had my MP5. I was ready to go, but nobody had showed up. And then all of a sudden, Gary and Randy are standing next to the cockpit. And I'm like, wow, this is over. There's a rescue force here.
Which is an amazing story in itself. I mean, both of them wound up with the Medal of Honor posthumously. But I recall reading that they both requested 7 times to be put on the ground, knowing full well that there was only going to be 2 of them and no telling how long till the guys of the Rangers got there.
You're right about all of that. And again, I only know about it secondhand because obviously I'm not on the aircraft with them. But they were told initially no, and eventually convinced the leadership that if they were not let in, we were lost. And, you don't know what's in the mind of someone else, but they had to know, hey, this is going to be dicey at a minimum, because it took 8 hours for another American to get to our crash site.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about the fact that as you were going down, you could see the airfield roughly 2 miles away, and yet it took 8 hours for anybody to get there.
And it's because, well, we were resource constrained, and there were so many things happening. You had 6-1's crash site, you had the convoy, you had the target, now you had my crash site. So really, the commander's got 4 things that he's got to deal with, and he didn't even really have the resources for one.
By the way, I'm going to chase a rabbit real quick. I don't know if you heard this yet, but you know the whole base renaming thing that happened.
I was going to bring this up
about Gary Gordon.
Yeah. And it's a brilliant solution. And I just read it a couple days ago.
Yeah. For those who don't know, that Fort Gordon was one of the names that nobody knew was apparently tied to a Confederate. I didn't know that Benning was. I didn't know that Rucker was. I just went and trained there, as I'm sure you probably did. But Fort Gordon got renamed to something, but Fort Gordon's getting its name back for your rescuer, Gary Gordon.
Right.
Yeah. That's I think that's pretty. Now we got to find a Fort Shugart somewhere.
Yeah. They might have to create one. Yeah.
What do you recall about Shugart and Gordon being on the ground? I mean, I've read their story separately. I've read it in your book, but give me and the listeners, when they got on the ground and were talking, what were your thoughts? What was the conversation?
It was brief, purely mission focused. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They knew, hey, look, we got to get him out of the cockpit, meaning me, because I'm too vulnerable there. I'm sitting up, basically up off the ground, elevated, and so that was one of the primary things they wanted to get done, is get me out of there, and then essentially, as well as I could, set up a perimeter. Now, the way the geography of this crash site was, there was a wall right to the right. The nose is pointing forward as I'm sitting here, and there's a wall right to the right. Now it's just a corrugated tin wall, basically, but still, there's no way for someone to access the site from there. So I believe their decision was, we're going to go secure the left side, put me on the right. And that is, in fact, where the attack primarily came from, was the left side. So I can hear it. And then I could see Somalis, onesie, twosies. I fired all the rounds in my weapon at the Somalis that tried to come in on the right side, but the bulk of the attack came from the left side.
How long were Shugart and Gordon in the mix? I mean, how long until they were actually taken?
It's hard to say. I know there's an official timeline somewhere. I honestly don't recall. Time is so hard to judge when things are in that state of chaos. I would say probably 10 minutes, maybe 15, from the time they showed up to the side of the aircraft to, Gary went down first, and at that point, Randy's almost out of ammunition already. And he came around and he asked me where the crew chief's weapons were, and I told him, and he went in, grabbed one, and then he gave me what I believe was Gary's weapon, which still had rounds in it, because I had fired all the rounds out of my MP5. And then he went around the nose of the bird. He made a quick radio call, and we were told on the radio that a reaction force was en route. Again, cause for a little bit of optimism here. Yeah. And then he went and made his last stand on the other side.
Were 160th aircraft overhead? I mean, were you getting any kind of air cover at all when you were down?
Well, we're not getting any air cover, but that call that he made that call on what we call the fire net, meaning it's a fire support net. So he's talking to
And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just pulling pins on truth grenades, you guys. Hey, listen, a couple of quick updates, things that you may not have known. But first of all, the White House has already ordered flags at half staff for Charlie Kirk. And then also, it's now being reported by all the outlets that they actually do not have the shooter in custody. And that he is still loose. So I am hopeful to see that there's a manhunt underway that drags him back through a crowd of people screaming his names, and we get to see fear on his face.
Yeah, an older gentleman was arrested, but I don't know what his connection is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that was I don't know if he was in the vicinity, he was conspiring. We don't know. He might have been a spotter. We don't know what. But there's that. Also, I got to let you know, too, real quickly, I will be out of the studio tomorrow. I have had occasion to be called away for something that is big, and maybe one day we can talk about it. But the reality is I will be out of the studio tomorrow. The JP will handle the show. In fact, he's already said, I would like to have some time because I think today's events are something that I want to cover. And so JP will have the mic tomorrow for the first part of the show, after which you'll get a bit of a replay. But yeah, that being said, I'm out of the studio tomorrow, but I love you and I appreciate you. Let me go to the phones real quick because he held on during the break and I appreciate it. Mike from Huntsville. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
I'm good, Phil. We're still using that term shooter when these people are murdered. The DNC has become a terrorist operation. How many times do you have to call for war against Republicans and people who support Trump or MAGA before it actually becomes a terrorist operation? I mean, this is becoming sick. And then Obama comes out and says, gee, we really don't know why they shot Charlie Kirk. It's pretty amazing to me that the Democrats keep calling for killing a war against us, and yet no one's calling them out. But the using the word shooter, Phil, doesn't help any because these are cold-blooded murderers.
That's a fair point, man. And I take it. I mean, it's semantics, but it's also a reasonable point when you change the tone from shooter to murderer. It does have a different flavor to it. So yeah, I appreciate the insight, man. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you holding on the break there too.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll get a few more texts and take it all the way to the top of the hour. Jeff from Indiana checking in says, hey, Phil, the left is lucky because if we acted like they do when things like this happen, we'd be the ones tearing up the whole country. And we don't take our lack of nonviolence. I said, but don't take our lack of nonviolence as deceiving. It's a tinderbox right now. We don't need to be pushed. That's fair. John from Huntsville says, Phil, let's want to say condolences to Charlie Kirk's entire family. He will definitely be missed by me and many other conservatives. He was a true winner, and he'll be rewarded greatly in heaven. John, appreciate you, man, and great words.
He's being rewarded right now.
Absolutely. Certainly is. John from Minor says, Charlie's a martyr. He is loved and will be missed. Praise God for the time we had him spreading the good news. That's so true. And I'm watching right now, like Fox News on, what do they call it, the 5 in the afternoon?
Yeah.
And every one of those guys is friends with him.
Yeah.
And they're having to do a show right now. I'm talking about him from afar, still feeling like he was impactful. They're talking to him. Jesse Waters is talking right now. Jesse had him on his show just the other day.
Yeah, they're having to talk about their friend that just got killed.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
There will be an official press conference at 6 p.m. Eastern time, I believe it is. So probably in the next few minutes, we may get an update. I suspect it will be probably at the hospital. Maybe law enforcement will tell us what they're doing in terms of the manhunt. But keep your eyes on that one. Ed P. from Huntsville talking about my comments earlier about symbols of an active lifestyle. He says, Phil, scars are tattoos with better stories. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. In fact, one of my favorite lines is from the Goo Goo Dolls. It said, the scars are the souvenirs you never lose.
It's true.
It's true. It's a great line. To me, it's one of those poetic lines. Like, did they know how good that was when they wrote it? I don't know.
Chicks dig scars.
Chicks dig scars. Have you seen that movie, The Replacements?
I have not. I just know that line.
Okay. Well, you need to watch the movie.
Add it to the list.
Put that on the list. It's a football movie. You'd love it.
Oh, okay. I've seen that scene. Yeah, but I've not seen the whole movie.
Jerry from Decatur says, I was very saddened to hear of Charlie Kirk's voice has been silenced. At his passing, I'm sure the next words he heard was welcome home. Ooh, God almighty. Get me right there. He said he was a great soldier of the cross. When we read Romans chapter 1, we see there are very wicked people in this world that are anti-Christ, anti-truth. So where are we? See the last verse in the chapter. If we don't fight back, God says we will be just like the wicked. Thank you for your courage, Charlie. Roy from Hartsel says, Charlie Kirk spoke the truth. He may be the last truth teller we see. So sad. I don't think so. I agree with JP. I think that we just had just dozens of Charlie Kirks birthed out of this moment. I think what you're going to wind up seeing is the left has just lit up something that they can't control now. And I don't mean like control violently. I mean that the bottom line is there's going to be the next layer of voices stepping into the fray because they were inspired by his passing, encouraged by his messaging, emboldened by the need to fill the gap. And I really do believe you're going to wind up seeing more Charlie Kirks come into the forefront. Brian from Decatur says, can you tell me why politicians call for violence and nothing happens to them? Because there are people that are lazy and believe that's just political rhetoric, and it's not. He said, but then he goes on to say, however, someone like me listening to your radio program did the exact same thing on social media or some nut job acted on it, I would be investigated and most likely thrown in jail. Depending on how you did it. I mean, yeah, if you actually incited the violence, but Maxine Waters can get out there and yell at people to go find them wherever they are, tell them they're not welcome, get in their faces. She can call for that kind of violence. just the other day, I had a story I didn't get to today, but we had the shooting in Minneapolis. Innocent children praying at church. A transgender activist goes and shoots and kills 2 and wounds, I think, was like a dozen more, or 13 or 14 more, and then killed himself. And in the aftermath, Vice President J.D. Vance went to the memorial service. And he went, and he and his wife took flowers, and they were there for a memorial service for dead children. And protesters showed up to scream at him at a memorial service for dead children.
Everything's fair game to them. Everything is fair game because they don't believe in a God, so they have no sense of morality, and they can do whatever they want.
They are indeed. They're morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
They're morally bankrupt and without a path. They have no base. They have no rock. They have nothing to cling to. In fact, that's a whole thing about following your own truth.
But I do feel bad for them because they are so lost and they're in a position where they don't realize how lost they are. And it's only going to be, Jesus that's going to help them see the light. It's unfortunate because that leads to stuff like today.
Barry from Huntsville says, last weekend was the opening day of dove season. How many men and women and children hunted with how many guns and ammunition? And there were no deaths, no mass shootings. There's something to point out. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the vast majority of gun owners have nothing to do with violence. They don't. And I remember in high school, Grissom High School. Now, I wasn't a big hunter. My family, I wasn't a big hunter growing up. I love guns. I've got plenty of them, and I like going to ranges. I'm more of a sporting clay shooter, that kind of stuff. But I remember guys who would go duck hunting in the morning before school and come in and their shotguns hanging in the back window of their truck in the school parking lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
And nobody thought a thing of it.
Yeah. Because it's like, who's going to do anything out of school? But now schools have to be protected by cops now.
Well, I said what I said earlier and I meant it. And we're going to post something to social media just to memorialize it. But the reality is this: what you saw today was a tragedy. Make no mistake. It was a tragedy, but it was also something that I believe should not be allowed to go to waste. Do not let it be in vain. Go ahead and take courage and know that, yes, there are more of us than there are of them, and God is still on his throne. Y'all stay in the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.